Welcome to the Inspired Father podcast, where we celebrate the extraordinary journey of fatherhood. I'm your host, Wesley Rhoads. Join us as we bring heartfelt, empowering stories from fathers all around the world, the joys and challenges to the triumphs and lessons learned. This podcast is a beacon of inspiration for every dad out there. So let's embark on that adventure of fatherhood together and get inspired. Hey, thanks for agreeing to come on the Inspired Father podcast with me.
You're welcome.
So just to kick things off, introduce yourself, who you are, a little bit of background. This is going to be a hit from home interview because you are my father. So this is going to be an interesting one. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, Wes, I think first and foremost, I'm a believer in Christ, and that is the framework in which I try to live my life. In general, I view myself as just an ordinary guy. I'm pretty simple-minded. I don't see myself as being better than or worse than other people, other men. However, having said that, when I look back over my life, I do think I have a tendency to overcomplicate things and to also overthink things. I would say that I'm not very good multitasker. It's hard for me to juggle a lot of different tasks or thoughts, so I tend to get curious in something and go deep on that. So I would say I have a curious nature, which I maybe is somewhat childlike, but I grew up in a small town in Missouri through grade school, and then we moved to a larger city, Atlanta, Georgia. And so I always felt like my childhood was kind of the best of both worlds.
That Missouri to Georgia, I can't think of two better places in the world. I'm kidding.
Yeah. More like, growing up with access to both sets of grandparents and learning to drive a John Deere tractor on a farm, and then to then learn to drive a car on the Autobahn of the Atlanta interstates.
Exactly.
It's quite a contrast, but
yeah.
I mean, it was a good upbringing, and I was fortunate in that I had wonderful parents. They weren't perfect, but they were a good partnership.
Yeah.
And they each had their own set of strengths and weaknesses. And I always felt like maybe they weren't the perfect parents for me. I still feel like I chose my parents pretty well. And that I benefited by growing up in a stable household and having two parents that loved me and took care of me and helped to develop me. So,
were there other animals in the house?
Well, I had two older sisters.
Oh, gotcha.
And I think
you said it was a stable house. There's sawdust.
Yeah. We did have pets, and that was good. But and I might have been I was never a wild child, but yeah.
You used to consider yourself an audiophile, if I remember correctly.
I did. That was kind of the thing back in the day when I grew up, all the gear.
Right.
And
stereo equipment.
Yeah. Always had interest in that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then later I did that sort of thing transitioned over into like photography.
Right.
And, but yeah, I can remember like going to the audiophile stores and, we try out speakers and listening to things like that, or looking at the latest cassette deck, or receiver.
Cassette deck.
Exactly.
Or 8-track.
You
did records too, right?
Dreaming about reel-to-reels and things you couldn't afford. I never was a great, actually I liked the gear, but I never really was all that into the music.
Yeah.
Had a few favorite bands that collect albums from and things like that. But
I know some cyclists that are like that. They're all about the gear, but they're not really about the whole riding it.
Yep.
And then so it looks nice in the garage. However, their dad bod gut shows that they haven't really used it when it comes to equipment. But that's definitely not the case for you.
No.
Awesome. Well, for the audience, the interview today is Clint Rhoads. It happens to be my father. So this is going to be a very special interview here. Kick things off. Do you have a favorite dad joke?
No.
I'll give you one.
Okay.
What did the fish say when it ran into the concrete wall?
Fancy.
That hurt. Damn. What did the concrete wall say about the fish?
Give up.
Dumb bass. Anyway. So yeah, I'm one of 3 kids. So you have 3 children.
Girl, boy, girl.
Yep. I have an older sister, a younger sister. A rose between 2 thorns, so to speak. We're going to dive right into some hard topics. We're going to talk about challenges that you had as a father.
Okay.
Let's talk about discipline. So I have some very distinct memories growing up as far as discipline is concerned.
Okay.
I'd say probably the biggest impact would be, or the most memorable would be on a financial level. I feel like I learned a lot of really good financial lessons very early, and then those financial lessons are always also good life lessons that apply to other areas. But let's talk about discipline and maybe an example of where like discipline went right or when used as punishment, and discipline also defined as like self-discipline.
Okay. First of all, I believe that in the home that if you're fortunate to have 2 loving parents, that discipline is important for your to raise your children. But that so there needs to be both truth and love, because if your home is all about the truth, and judging aspect, that can be too harsh. And so while that's very important to know, what the standards are of right and wrong, what's acceptable and not acceptable, that needs to be offered with love. And so I think that you need a balance of both of those things. And sometimes in a family, one person, parent, can be more warm and fuzzy, loving, and then or they might be more judgmental and rigorous and kind of like law-abiding police person or something. And that's just too harsh to grow up that way, to be under the constant thumb of someone where you feel like you're being analyzed and judged all the time.
Right.
So I think that to be a good parent and to offer the best environment for your children, you do need to discipline. You can't just love them only and like disregard the character building, truth building aspects of life. But it's a balance. It's a dance between those two.
Yeah. So based on your responses there, I have a little bit of insider knowledge, obviously. But would you say that your childhood upbringing has led you, or not has led you, but led you to have those beliefs that you need to have a little bit more balance from like love and discipline?
I mean, undoubtedly it has.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, you want to be, at times you want to be the leader that you wish you had. Mm-hmm. So in all of our childhood, all of our childhoods, in our, thinking back of our history and upbringing, we may have yearned or wished for, someone that, a different parent, a different mother, a different father, someone that wasn't maybe quite so flawed, or that they had brought something more out of you, And so sometimes at times in my life, I have thought that maybe I had more in me that wasn't being like developed, brought out, or most definitely like encouraged. So while I grew up in a very supportive family, looking back as an adult, I feel like I could have used more encouragement at times. And so you can't just assume that you're doing enough.
Right.
Right. So even as a parent, I think it's important to, just continually, question yourself as to like, what could I be doing better here? Or how could I be doing this different? Or
Right.
As a parent couple, how can we work better together?
Sure.
So,
those comments helped me to remember a book. I believe that when I was growing up, you actually turned me on to this book, but it was the 5 love languages.
mm-hmm.
So the encouragement, I believe, would fall under like the words of affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that that's one of your love languages?
I think that probably is. I mean, it's been a long time since I've read that book, and but I think yes, for me, I think that probably words of encouragement or something along those lines is probably my love language, and and here it's important. I think that every person is hardwired by their creator to be who they are.
Right.
And, love language is part of that hardwiring.
Right.
And so, maybe part of our duties or responsibilities as a parent is to really try to figure out, those unique characteristics of each child.
Absolutely.
And it's like it's not really fair to treat. I mean, you want to be balanced and treat like your children like fairly and balanced, but they're all different. So like one person,
my sisters are very quote unquote different from me.
Yeah, they're all different,
and they embody the different.
But yeah, they're you're wired differently. You have different set of talents, and those talents need to be developed to skills. But you can't be someone you're not.
Totally.
And that's okay.
Well, you can be somebody you're not, but then you're probably going to live a pretty unfulfilling life.
That's right.
Now, on the love languages topic, I believe personally that people can both show and then receive differently. So, like for me, I love to do things for other people, acts of service, but I don't necessarily like other people to do things for me. It doesn't, if it's you or mom or Chastity, like that's one thing, but outsiders like friends that like I would consider to love, I don't really like it for them to do things for me. So I don't really accept love that way or receive it. I would totally accept acts of service, but receiving it, there's other things that go further. So with,
well, Wes, this is a great example. I mean, this is one of the things I love about you is that you take a concept and then you take it to the next level. And so you're an out of the box thinker. I like that. And but just this whole concept of love language that it could be different whether you're on the receiving side or the giving side.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. So let's talk about discipline as far as like individual discipline for yourself. So it seems like as offline conversations have led me to believe that later in your life, you've become much more individually disciplined in a couple different areas, especially when it comes to athletics and overcoming hardships. As a parent, you become very high crunched when you're in the thick of it. And it's very easy to get off, the fitness, nutrition train. But here in the last 10 years or so, you've really stepped up your game as far as discipline when it comes to taking care of yourself via nutrition and fitness is concerned. But can you talk about maybe some topics from early in our childhood, or my childhood, that you had to remain really disciplined in and that were very difficult to do, but it was kind of a non-negotiable, like you had to do X, Y, or Z, or you could even talk about some things that you maybe let pass that you wish you had stayed disciplined in our early years as we were infants and then growing up into those early ages.
Well, when you're raising a family, you're juggling lots of things all the time, and so you're very much time constrained. And sometimes you're aware of those constraints and sometimes you're not. And so some days you're just putting out fires, so to speak, and you're just trying to,
and sometimes quite literally putting out fires.
Quite literally.
I had a little bit of a pyro streak in me.
You did. And on the flip side, some issues with some excess water.
True.
And flood the basement. Yes. No, for all three of you you had your interest, and I always wanted you to be able to pursue those interests.
Sure.
But each of the things that you were interested, in your case, you got interested in cycling fairly early in life, but in order to become a good cyclist, and you had the first and foremost, you had the desire. So I always felt like it's important to cultivate the love of something first. And once you cultivate a love, or first you have to have an interest in something.
Right.
And if your interest is strong enough, it can become more of a love affair or a passion.
Right.
And then that gives you the incentives to want to just continue to incrementally get better and better and better.
Right.
And so that's a process. And part of the process does require discipline.
Thanks for listening to the Inspired Father podcast. We'll be right back after this message.
Hi there. We're Sweet Dreams Mattress and Furniture. We have mattresses
and furniture.
We also have highly skilled salespeople, our own superhero, and fun. Lots and lots of fun. I know I already mentioned mattresses and furniture, but did I mention it's in stock and ready to rock? Yep, that's right. We're in stock and ready to rock and ready to serve you, Lake Norman, with next day delivery on many of our most popular items. Only at Sweet Dreams Mattress and Furniture.
Sounds like a sweet deal to me.
In your case,
how about for you personally? To start, just early years as a father, what was hard and to remain disciplined on, or maybe something that you wish you had remained disciplined in that you did let go?
I mean, nothing really stands out other than just trying to be a good team player. And I think I tend to be more individualistic in lots of things. But within the context of a family, I wanted first and foremost to be not only a leader but to be a team player, and to always take the 30,000 foot view of things or 50,000 foot view of things. The big picture, right?
Right.
To be able to maintain the long view,
right?
And it's so everything in life tends to force us to think about just the matter that's in front of you today. But, to have a balance, to take a longer term view of things, and to see things in a bigger context. And that requires discipline, to manage your thought process. But, I don't know off the spot how to add much more to that.
Yeah. You talk about discipline in regards to punishment, when it went right and when it went wrong. It can be with me, or it can be with either one of my sisters.
I think in my case, as a father, as a person, I view myself as someone that has a fairly long wick. But once that wick is burned up, that I'm slow to anger, but once I reach that point, that requires discipline too, is channeling that anger.
Right.
And so it raising children, at some point, at many points, you may get aggravated or get angry at times. And that's where, it's a balancing act to bring correction to the situation.
Right.
With love.
Right.
Right. And so as an adult, you have to check yourself. And so, I think I'm somewhat wired for that, to be somewhat balanced. I'm not patting myself on the back. It's the way, God made me. And, but, your recollections of your childhood are probably more intimate. Probably as the receiver of discipline.
Totally.
I'm sure you could comment on that. Maybe it bring back a memory or two maybe at times when you felt like I was too harsh or something.
Yeah, and I think you really instilled discipline. Again, the biggest example being the finance talk. We'll get to that a little bit later. Okay. We had a really interesting rewards system as kids, as far as allowances and grades and that type of thing. How did you come up with those ideas for like how to reward good behavior or reaching goals, or just being a generally good kid?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I again, it's like, I viewed the family. I think that your mother brought a lot to the table, and she has a lot of good ideas, like in terms of parenthood, and I did as well, and we would talk about things, and listen to each other and decide kind of how to handle things. But like in terms of allowance and the financial things that you want to maybe convey some information throughout time about finances, money, how money works, and some of these things, are important lessons you can learn even as a young child, as to doing something and being compensated for it. However, I don't think that we really I don't recall like paying like allowances for earning A's and B's and things like that.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
No. It was. I think that was kind of like just an expectation that you would try your best in school, and but that
not try, but you will do your best in school.
Yes, I mean we did have expectations.
Yeah,
we always I think you can't be great at everything, but in school, you need to work hard and do your best,
right?
And discover what you're good at and what you're not good at,
right?
And it's important to know what you're not drawn toward. So I don't know. Do you have anything to add to that?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
pretty thumbs that up. Let's talk about school and grades. I feel like all three of us did really well. Myself and my two sisters, we're pretty motivated in school. We didn't really have a lack of motivation and poor grades. I feel like we all three did pretty darn well in staying self-disciplined when it came to education. And that could have came from teachers that we had at Covenant School, which was pretty grateful for that experience. But as from your perspective as a father, speak to school a little bit and how important it was to balance the education we were getting both in the classroom and in at home.
Right. So I'm a product of government schools, public education, so when you're little and you're going through the process, you don't necessarily know why you do certain things, but it's looking back, it's very much like you're a cog in the machine. And it's the school for me. I remember I did well in school,
right?
But it was very much like an assembly plant, and you're a widget in the plant, and I don't honestly think that was not the best setup for me.
Right.
Again, like I said earlier, I'm not a good multitasker.
Sure.
It's like school, the very nature of school forces you to juggle all these different subjects.
It does.
I kind of wish I could go back and relive my youth, but be able to focus on one thing at a time. I think I would have done much better.
Of course.
But with you all, we were fortunate in that, while you all were born in the Atlanta area, we moved to a smaller community in West Virginia, and so you were able to grow up in a smaller, safer environment. Right. And while Elizabeth, your older sister, started off in public education in first grade, that came right after us moving. And it didn't take long for her for me to become disappointed in what I was seeing. I heard this. I can recall the very first PTA meeting that we attended, and it was just chaos. And we knew of a startup school.
This would have been in what, Barbersville Elementary?
Mm-hmm. Barbersville, right?
Okay.
So we knew of a startup Christian school,
Right.
But it was a brand new school, and we were kind of reluctant to like look into that. But we were invited to the very first student assembly where students performed, their things that they've been working on for the first few weeks or months of school. Sure. And we were so blown away by that I think that occurred maybe on a Friday night or something. And it's like, Elizabeth was enrolled in school Monday morning. So, and from that, we had to spend a lot of time in catching her up to her peers.
Really?
It took a lot of effort for her to catch up. Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
And, now you benefited in that, because you got to go to school there from the beginning.
Right.
And a smaller private Christian school is much more hands-on, and like it does require a lot more participation from families, from parents, and parents working with teachers.
Sure.
And everything is kind of a startup environment, and so it was like all hands on deck.
Right.
And so that it was a great blessing.
So you mentioned having to catch her up to her peers. Was that mainly parent led? Because like she started going to school there and was so far behind at home that catching up had to do? Or would you say that her teachers there were able to catch her up?
No, it was both.
Okay.
It was, us working at home, working alongside with teachers and catching Elizabeth up.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I remember going to Covenant being a very difficult school, and being very challenged by that. I think I didn't necessarily see the value of what I was learning then, and I don't think of that. And so I wasn't motivated intrinsically in school, other than like just always have a mentality, I think, probably from being a kid, of always just wanting to be the best. And just because of that, or wanting to be better than I was. And just because of that, I think I did what I had to do in school to make it happen. And then doing some special stuff with NILD.
What now? Do you want to explain what NILD is?
I don't even remember what the acronym stands for, but it's kind of a brain retraining to allow you to be a little bit more multitasked, and how you can process and receive information. It kind of rewires the brain for learning.
So I don't remember either what the NILD stood for, but I do remember working with you on that.
It was a lot of parent input on that one.
Very much. And like in your case, first of all, there are different learning styles.
Right.
And where I am a very visual learner, there are people that are better. They're better listeners.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, I felt like I was not the best listener.
Right.
And oddly enough, a number of years ago, I started listening to podcasts, and that one of the reasons, one of my motivations behind that was to become a better listener, to listen for detail.
Right.
But in your case, you're more of what's called a kinesthetic learner.
Yeah.
So like you're very much a hands-on person. So like it's important how you move your body and how you work with your body. That's part of your mental processing.
Sure.
And the NILD, I recall the exercises that we did that they actually were very like kinesthetic.
Right.
And so it's a bit of like you said, a rewiring of the brain. And it took months to do that.
Yeah, I think it was multiple years,
maybe even longer,
that I did that. I missed out on a lot of Latin, so that was the one class I had to drop to be able to do NIL.
I made it all the way through college without ever taking my first foreign language class. But when I heard the argument for Latin, it kind of made sense with me. And then the argument was that if you learn one root word of Latin, that would translate maybe into like knowing what 10 different derivatives of that word for different languages. So I thought, hey, I see some efficiency in that.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I did learn a new language growing up in West Virginia, but it's fed off of English.
That was pig Latin, right?
Something. Yeah, so I think that's a really good example of having to do school at home was that NILD program. That wasn't necessarily part of the core curriculum. That was an auxiliary thing. But I think without that, I wouldn't have been as successful in school as I have been.
Right.
And then it got to be a lot as far as homework was concerned. And
well, even on the issue, Wes, I don't recall how it all came about, but I think maybe, one of your teachers like picked up on something, maybe like a learning, not necessarily a disability, but something that just wasn't quite, optimal. And this was like a new program that the school, they recognized that this is, sort of problems. And so they were on the lookout. So they were very proactive.
Right.
And, like mom was very engaged with all the people at school. And,
right.
I was as much as I could be, but it was because somebody was paying attention.
Yeah.
And honestly, to be a good teacher, I think that first of all, you need to love children. You need to love kids.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of smart people that are teachers, but they don't really have an affinity for kids. And, they probably should go find something different.
Exactly.
But fortunately, I think for the most part, your teachers, they all, first and foremost, they all love kids.
They do.
Yeah. And took an interest in them. And, they saw where they were doing well and saw, maybe some shortcomings too.
Right. So, yeah. I was talking to Mom just the other day about Mindy Stanley, and I was asking, when is she going to retire? Mom said, she's never going to retire. Yeah, like she was born to be a first grade teacher. It's just that's what she's good at. She's going to stay in that lane forever.
Great example, awesome person. She loved kids, and because she loved kids loved her back.
Yeah.
And that's how it is.
Yeah.
So that's how you bring the best out of people. It's like, you take interest in them. But it genuinely loved them.
Right.
And you coach them and bring them along.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Are there any big or any big memories that you have of any one of us from school in particular that you think could be a good lesson for new fathers that may have children that are still in the primary school years, less than high school, we'll say? You already mentioned the thing about the public school and seeing the deficiencies there and being
right.
This is unacceptable.
Right.
We're going to make sacrifices and they're going to go to public school. But is there any other lessons that you've taken away that you'd like to share with other fathers?
I would say that in today's environment that we live in, I'm coming to the belief that parents really need to be vigilant with their children. That
by that,
that while I believe that most people are good-natured, good people, not everyone is that way. And so for the most part, I want to trust in others, especially people that I would involve with my children, whether they're teachers or administrators. And so I think I would caution other people to be don't be disengaged, but rather be engaged with children in your schooling, who's teaching them, who the administrators are. It's trust but verify, right? And because I think it's important these days to make sure that your children are being guided properly, and that they're not being
and it's in line with your values as a family.
Yes, family values and like I said earlier, Christian values.
Right.
So, I want to see a moral upbringing. Right.
So is it fair to say that you think that the education, the public education system today, is pretty broken? It's kind of a yes or no.
Unfortunately, I would say yes.
Yeah. And you feel like we got there because parents weren't as engaged as they needed to be to pick up on these teachings that kind of started to find their way in there that didn't necessarily align with the family core values?
I think that's part of it. I think parents share blame.
Yeah.
You can't just disengage and just hand your children over to someone else to raise to educate. You have to stay engaged.
Right.
Now, I mean, in the last couple of years with COVID, and I know that, parents had to like homeschool.
Right.
And that forced many people to become much more engaged. And a lot of parents, from what I understand, over the last couple of years have like, they got a wake up call.
Yeah.
And they saw that, they didn't like what their kids were being taught,
Right.
or how they're going about being taught.
Right.
Right. Because we all view things like in the context of how we grew up.
Yes.
And so we make the assumption that like basically
Still being done the same way.
our kids it's a repeat of us. And it's like, it's not, it's not. So, it's kind of like you have to like get engaged, get involved, and within the time constraints that you have, and work together as a team, like, with your spouse.
Right.
Or perhaps grandparents or neighbors or, just other peers, your friends, just to work together.
Mm-hmm. Now let's kind of dive down an aspect of that topic where you said you have to stay engaged. So you as a father, you're a teacher, you're in a teaching role, leadership role. What metric can you think of to use to kind of grade yourself to whether you're successful or not as far as being in a leadership teaching role? It can be anything as far as like the academic performance of your children or something else. Is because I feel like as men we need like a metric to measure things, whereas broadly speaking, sometimes the motherly role, they're a little bit more intrinsically, they kind of know how things are going. But it's kind of what we can measure gets the attention. So how would you measure that?
There are, I guess, yardsticks in which, your education is being quantified. I mean, we all have the fear of getting our grade card. Or maybe not, if you were the straight A student, but I think I've always personally had high standards for myself. I don't know that I always would convey those same standards onto other people. For you all, the three of you, I wanted you to do your best, but yet I knew that you weren't going to be great at everything, and that was okay. But just to put forth the effort, and I think that I was not a perfect parent. I mean, I'm somewhat of an optimizer. I mean, at things I like, very analytical. I like, probably in a perfect world, I would want things to be perfect, but but of course, perfection is unobtainable. And so as a parent, while that's my target, I could never achieve that. Right. And so I'm hard on myself. I mean, other people may not realize it, but it's kind of an inward battle, right? To do better, be better, and of course, fall short many times. And then you have to hold yourself accountable, but at the same time, have some degree of buffer and grace even towards yourself, knowing that perfection is not obtainable, and we're all human. And, but at the end of the day, while I was not perfect and not a perfect parent, I did the best I could. Right. And, that's about as good as you can do.
So how do you quantify, measure it? Is it just a gut feeling, or is it, how can you measure success as a leader, father?
Success means different things to different people.
So defining success could be the beginning portion of that.
It could be. And so that might be for some people, that might be something that's kind of, more of a measuring stick, or it might be something that's more instinctual. Right. And I'm more of an instinctual type. I'm an instinctual type of person. So that's not necessarily
instinctual and analytical.
Yeah. It's a different thing. I would say it's not necessarily, I'm more of a thinker than a feeler.
Okay.
It's not to say that I don't feel, but it's like in how I make decisions and process things. It's mostly through thought process, but a lot of times I wouldn't say it's a gut feeling. It's more of an instinct based on thought, but it's just, I'm kind of through over time accumulating lots of data points And it's just internalizing the interconnections of those data points. Like, and if you're talking about school or some other subject, it's just like an intrinsic knowing of whether something is like on track or not. So, and that's what I mean by instinctual. Yes, I mean, some of those things may be, you might be able to quantify through a grade card or something, or like maybe your teacher someone else might actually pick up on a problem first, but then it's like once it's identified, then you can work toward.
Right. Cool. And then it's up to you too to like take that and run with it and not to be in denial. Like, oh no, my kid's perfect.
Right.
Yeah. And so to take action on like what somebody else sees, be like, somebody else sees this as their reality.
Right.
Maybe I should listen. Maybe there's nothing to it. Hopefully not. But if there is, you'd rather fix it, let it develop into something. So yeah, it sounds like you and my buddy Dan have some similar ideas as far as that. Just, the trust your gut.
Okay.
The more intrinsically guided, just that gut feeling you have as a father, like things going right, are they not? I've got pretty new recent experience, so it's, I'm kind of learning the difference between like, I'm a hungry cry or like, I'm just in here talking. I mean, and you kind of just learning as you go.
It's one thing to read about a book about swimming. It's something else to jump in the pool.
Exactly.
Right. And parenting is no different. Right.
Yeah.
You can imagine what it would be like someday to be a parent, but until the babies show up, it's all theory.
Exactly.
Right.
When I say legacy, what comes to mind?
Making an impact, and that's for the good. Right. Maybe to leave the world in a better place than you found it. When I think of legacy, sometimes I think of what's called the butterfly effect. And this was like a hypothetical at one point, that a butterfly flaps its wings and it stirs a little bit of air current, which then later, changes weather patterns maybe on the other side of the earth, right? And so it's like, I guess the physicists or whatever have proven this sort of thing to work. Or another way to reference this might be that you toss a rock into a still pond, and there's a ripple effect from the impact of that rock in the water. And so, to me, the legacy are the waves that come out of that splash, right? And it's like there's things in life that you will touch that you may never even know the impact that you make, right? And so it's like, I think we all have a legacy for the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Because there's good and bad in all of us.
Totally.
Right. And so, a legacy might be something that you personally did that benefited others, where it might be just in just being an ordinary person and doing the best that you can.
Yeah.
That you brought some goodness to someone that then later went on to do something great. Right. And so, one of your children may grow up to change the world, or it might be one of your descendants, your great grandchild. But your legacy is, had you not lived your life here and had your family, that future would never have occurred. Right. It's like we can't know. We simply cannot know what our true legacy is. But this is where our Creator knows. Right.
Yeah.
And that's mystical. It's magical.
Yeah.
But, I think that we're all important. We're all important. Everyone is important. That God gives us talents, things that we're hardwired for, that we're good at, things that we're not good at. And it's like, it's kind of our responsibility to figure out, what we're interested in and to develop those talents and the skills and to try to make a difference with.
Exactly.
Right. And, so, and to encourage other people to pursue that.
Right. So you said something very interesting. You believe a legacy, both good and bad. So would you say, kind of combining this with the last topic of how do you measure success, that maybe measuring success could be like looking at the perceived failures of your father and not repeating those, and then like kind of self-assessing, saying, well, you know what, I didn't do X, Y, and Z, so I would consider that to be a success. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that. It's, like I said, we all, none of us are perfect, and our parents weren't perfect. and their parents weren't perfect, right? And in some cases, and unfortunately, in some families, there's abuse that occurs, and abuse tends to, from what I understand, get passed down from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next. Right. And it's like, if that sort of thing ever does show up in a family, someone has to stand up and stop it. Right. Because you have to stop the cycle. And so it's like, yes. So you could have a legacy of abuse, somewhere up the food chain, right? And so yes, good things and bad things will compound.
Exactly. Yeah, and you want to have positive compound interest, so to speak, with life. You may have some shortcomings, but you want to see that trend up. Whether that be with your own life as well as the legacy that you leave behind. Because if your life takes kind of a negative turn, and along the family's compound interest curve, you could see it could take some time to come back from that. But
before we leave this, Wes, I mean, one thing is that in life you have ups and downs of life, and it's not a just a straight line up, right? Of course, and many times it's the down times that build you in order to equip you to do the next thing.
Yeah.
And so through the struggles or through the down times or through adversity, through pain, suffering, whatever might come your way, things that you may be blindsided by, something tragic, maybe out of your own making, or just due to something outside of your control.
Right.
It's like, okay, how do we get through this? And sometimes you don't know. And it's just like, okay, we're gonna live for another day,
right?
And we'll figure it out,
right?
But those dips in life, oftentimes, are the things that will equip you with the skills that you need to go on for the next day.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and it's interesting that we're having this conversation because, like, if you hit those dips and then you kind of go into
a downward spiral,
or like a depressed state, and you kind of, when somebody gives up, right? To me, you can draw a parallel to investing when people are very emotional about it.
Okay. So,
like, market takes a dip, they're like pulling it out. Like, I'm not working in this arena anymore.
Right.
Like, hey, it bit me. I'm just removing myself from that pain. Versus the disciplined investor, whenever they see that dip, they're like, ooh, this is the point that I'm going to double down on, dollar cost average. And then it turns out that because they stayed disciplined during that hard time, now everything grew even more exponentially because they were able to maintain that discipline during those hard times.
Right.
So same thing with life, right? If whenever hard times come your way, if you kind of double down and like really milk all of the lessons out of it to apply forward, then sky's the limit, right?
Right. So if we're talking about money,
I was just drawing a parallel between just life legacy, having it generally wanting to an upward trend,
right? And so,
and then drawing that parallel to like the principles of finance,
right? And it's like not only that, but if you can like step back and really look at all of human history, the long arc of history is upward,
right?
It's upward, right? But when you narrow down and that's, you're looking at the entire forest there. But when you narrow your vision down and you're looking at the bark on the tree, the day to day is it's a rough ride.
And it's
a roller coaster. It's a lot of ups and downs, like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And but yet if you can take the longer view of things, we're far better off today than we were 1,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, right?
Absolutely.
But it's like it's so difficult to look at the long view of that. So most likely, if we don't like self-destruct, the future is upward, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be upward for everyone, or that it's going to be upward in your lifetime, right? But this is the long arc, right? And
kind of like 40 years in the desert, right?
it is.
So
It is.
wasn't good for them, but it's good for their kids.
And I always thought, hey, if I was one of those people in the desert, I would have just taken like a couple steps in the same direction, and I would have gotten myself out of there in less than 40 years, right? But that may not be the case.
He would have died on day 2.
Yeah.
Got eaten by a lion or saber-toothed tiger or dinosaur or something. Who knows? Awesome. Well, let's move things in like a very positive direction.
Okay.
Talk to me about talk to me about a proud moment from each of the 3 of us. So we'll start with the youngest and then go to the oldest.
Youngest, oldest. Okay, so youngest is Emily.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, Emily, if you don't want your name out there.
I was the youngest in my family. And so I have 2 older sisters, and I'm definitely not the baby, but I'm definitely the youngest. So no,
That's interesting.
yeah. But there was enough of an age gap, in some ways. No, like me and my sisters. Between me and my sisters, where I think there is something to birth order, but I wouldn't put all my stock in it. But from youngest to oldest, Emily is the youngest of you all, and I think of the 3 of us. I mean, we all share some common traits, and then we're
You and your sisters.
no, you and myself, and you all are my children.
Okay.
So Elizabeth, you, and Emily. We share some traits, but then we're very different, and then each of you all are very different from each other. Emily, as the youngest, is she has a lot of traits that are similar to me. I think that we both tend to be inward people, introverted people. And but yeah, so she's kind of she runs deep, and but because she is a very private person, that a lot of people don't recognize like the horsepower that she has. Emily's a very, very smart person, but that's somewhat of a hidden trait, because she's not as extroverted as your oldest sister.
Yeah.
Proud moment. With Emily, I think that I'm proud of all of you all, and I'm proud of you for a number of reasons. I mean, first and foremost, I think I'm proud of you because you're my children, right? And it's like you never had to do anything to like earn my love. You have my love just because you're my children.
Yeah.
Right. And now you may not have felt that, because I think sometimes children feel like they have to earn the love of their parent. So, but very proud of Emily just because of all of her, who she is, has basically her character traits is what I'm in love with.
Right.
Yes. I'm also in love with the fact that, she's really very beautiful. I mean, she was beautiful as a child, and she's still beautiful. And she radiates beauty outwardly to me.
Right.
Now I'm biased, but I'm also proud of just like her intellectual capacity and what she's done, like in school, and but more than anything, I'm in love with her heart. That just knowing that she loves other people, and she has a fondness for other people, and wants to help them.
Yeah.
And I mean, even today, I mean, the pursuit of a teaching career,
right?
And kind of on the side, teaching little kids, mostly girls, and to ride horses.
Yeah,
it's a very hands-on thing. Every child's different,
right?
You have to assess what they're good at, what they're not good at, encourage them, and then going back to school to study to become a chiropractor, and so she's becoming a doctor, and it's like in some ways she's swimming against the flow. She's kind of, I'm somewhat of a contrarian myself, so I kind of admire that.
Yeah.
That, being a chiropractor is a little bit outside of the established medical, industry.
Right.
Yeah. So, it takes a bit of a contrarian, mindset to pursue something like that. And I admire that, and I know she'll do great. And
Is that, so would you say that's like the most recent moment is like her making that decision to pursue this path?
yeah. And also,
Or is there any like moment in history you can remember that you were like, that time that was cool. It's like, that's my daughter.
well, as a child, you had interest as in cycling and kind of athletic things. And Emily, and her older sister were involved in showing horses, American saddlebred horses.
Yeah.
And I, in all the horse shows and things that I was involved in and attended, I mean, I still am a complete idiot when it comes to like horses. But like when I would see her compete in the shows,
Right.
I would see how she could command a small little girl could command the power of a horse, right? And a lot of that, there was an internal strength, talent there that like transferred from her to the horse, and that was an awe-inspiring thing for me as a father to witness that. That's a very tangible thing that you can see.
She had a very natural for it. But then because she had that gift, she didn't just leave it alone at that. She also spent a lot of time and energy perfecting that.
A lot of time and energy.
Right. And a lot of early mornings and late nights and shoveling stalls and being dirty and just, it's a wild world there.
Very much. So, I mean, I'm proud of all of y'all for many, many reasons.
So yeah, let's talk about, so Emily was the horseback riding and just perfecting that art and being able to command such confidence out of a 1,000-pound animal or however much they weigh. What about my older sister?
Are we going to skip you?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you can. I mean, there's a million things.
We were going from youngest to oldest.
That'd be a whole other topic or a whole other. Joe is reasons I'm proud of my son. All right.
Yeah.
He's the most humble
because it can't be done. It can't be done in one podcast.
Yeah. Right.
Well, we'll skip you and we'll go on because that's a bit too time consuming.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'll just move on to your older sister Elizabeth, and
hers will be very quick.
Elizabeth is one of these people that she is just like a spark. That when she goes into a room, she explodes. She just she brings a lot of energy to the room.
Yeah,
and it's
good or bad. Coming.
It's a vivaciousness, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's an energy spark, and it's just like a big smile, and just she brings a lot of exuberance, and she's the super extrovert. And Elizabeth's easy to be around because she will all you have to do is just listen.
Yeah.
And so she will like direct a conversation or but it's always positive with Elizabeth. And that's not to say that for the most part. It's not to say that, she hasn't encountered, bad things or down times.
Yeah,
but I think that, Elizabeth, she's fun to be around. She brings a lot of energy into a room, and also she's incredibly smart too, and so, and Elizabeth is very good with working with people. And, as a parent, I mean, at one point when she was younger, and she worked at one of the stores in the mall, and I would go, and she could drive at some point, but I would sometimes pick her up, or I was able to go in and actually kind of watch her from a distance and see how she would she became a store manager, and I remember seeing her kind of take those management skills. And I could witness how she interacted with other employees, or how she interacted with, say, a customer, and just got stuff done. And so Elizabeth's very much, she's a phenomenal, where I'm a terrible multitasker. She's fantastic at that. She can juggle a lot of things, and she's very organized. And I mean, even the way in her household, with 2 children, super organized.
Yeah.
Everything is buttoned down.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I saw her just a day ago, and she had been to Target, and she got some drawer organizers, and it's just like everything is organized to even in the kitchen.
Right.
All the utensils are like perfectly in their place.
Yeah.
And
cups are numbered. I'm just kidding.
So
kind of broke number 3.
So, yeah, Elizabeth brings a lot to the table. She brings a lot of value. She enhances other people's lives.
So, because she has children, this is a very interesting segue. What would you say you're the most proud of as her as a parent? Like her being a parent, not you being her parent. Does that make sense?
Right. I think that Elizabeth is she's very aware of the needs of her. She has 2 small children, 3 years old, and then almost a 1-year-old, and just aware of what their needs are, if their needs are being met, making sure that they're taken care of, and always like looking for the next thing, whether it's like a swimming lesson, or to be involved in a dance class, or some other need that might be there. So it's like it's just Elizabeth. She's very much an encourager, and even on the side where she has kind of developed a little bit of a business with children's books, right, and so constantly, bringing encouragement and learning, and into the house for the children.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, she's a heck of a role model. That's for sure. All right. So, do you have any like pro tips for other dads? Something that's like an aha moment with your kids. It's like maybe we were master negotiators, but then you found out the weak link in our armor, and you're able to cut down our negotiations, or it can be diaper brand or a piece of anything. Anything come out the minivan, that's a pro tip right there. But is there any one thing you can think of for other dads to make their life a little bit easier?
Well, here's an example. I think that it's important to like pay attention to your children, and things are a little different now than they were, when for me. But I mean. In today's era, for instance, of the smartphone, I love technology. I've always loved technology. I mean, I was interested in that sort of thing before, most of my peers.
Right.
I had a programmable calculator. Okay.
H12C, right?
Right. I mean, I was setting up an email server before anyone ever even knew what email was, right? So I've always been engaged with technology,
right?
And we live in a technological world,
right?
But it's, I think we all hear this, but we don't like internalize it. But it's that, it's a blink, like from the time you have children to when they basically have wheels. As soon as they get wheels, they are not going to be at home like all the time, right? So you have a window of time, in which to like try to make an impact, which is ultimately your legacy, right? But I would plead with dads to like pay attention to your kids, And it's like when I'm out walking or running, something like that, and I encounter, I love seeing fathers with their sons and daughters, I especially love it when I see it one-on-one.
Yeah.
Whether it's, someone that's like tossing a fishing line in a pond.
Yeah.
Or, maybe a father helping a young daughter, to like, learn how to ride a bike, or just spending time together.
Totally.
It's like when I go by someone like that, I try to like get the dad's attention and give them a thumbs up, and
Yeah.
I'll say, hey, way to go, man. You know, it's like, but at the same time, I mean, there have been a few times when I encountered, say, a father and a child at a restaurant, and the father's like staring at his phone, and it's like there have been a few moments when, like, I make eye contact, and it's like, pay attention to your son, pay attention to your daughter. It's like, put that down. Yeah, it's like you can't like say that maybe directly to someone, but you can get the message across. But I would encourage fathers to like try to. As much as you can, you can't like not disengage with the technological world, but like try to like put that down and like pay attention, because it's like, it's a blink.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, just in my recollection of childhood, some of my favorite things early on and beyond were kind of on a day-to-day level, tossing a Frisbee. I loved throwing a Frisbee. Or even catch, right? Love that. But then there's a couple other moments that I can remember that made a huge impact where you were able to feed in, which were when we did the Greenbrier River Trail, a multi-day bike camping experience. That was a big one. And at that time, I got the wild hair to ride my bike 143 miles, and I couldn't do it self-supported, and you drove at 15 to 18 miles an hour, 140 miles. It took literally all day, and that had a big impact.
And that particular day, that was not an easy day for any cyclist when you consider the terrain that you covered.
Yeah,
because we're not talking flat roads. You were climbing some hills.
Yeah,
and it's like when you're going up a hill on a bicycle, you can only go so fast, even if you're elite.
That's right.
And it's like
the car doesn't even go that slow unless you're riding the brakes while idling up that same hill.
And when you're on a twisty West Virginia road, the drivers get frustrated.
Yeah,
being held up by a cyclist. And so by being like, your support crew for the day, I was able to like, kind of shield you from some of that traffic.
And then another thing that really stands out, this didn't happen that often, but there was a couple moments, and I didn't get an Xbox until I was like 14, right? Not holding a grudge or anything, but whenever I was able to, like, you and I played multiplayer together, and I was able to kind of like teach you how to do it, and then we got to then, compete against each other.
We didn't really compete because you crushed me.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it was still fun that you were participating. And then, also when we went snowboarding, that was quite a time as well, when you really stepped outside of your comfort zone, which were skis,
right? And
got onto a snowboard, and we made it down the hill exactly one time. And then you're like, I bit off more than I could chew. I'm turning this in for skis. We went and skied and had a great day despite it.
It was a fun day.
And then we get to the car, and oh no, keys are gone. And you lost them on the 1,000th time that you fell on the snowboard on the one hill. So it was nice that we only had one hill to scan, but we never found those keys on that mountain. So
no, but someone else did find those keys.
Yeah,
and we got them back
right at the last minute. We checked lost and found, I think, twice first, and then skied that run twice, and then checked lost and found one more time. And
thank you, God. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that would have been a bad day.
Yep,
long walk from home. So as far as pro tips, it sounds like just paying attention to your children.
Pay attention, right? Yeah. I mean, look the phone down. Just be on the lookout for what your kids are interested in, and and then like help to channel some of that energy. And I mean, it's like, and if you happen to have like a strong-willed child, that's awesome, right? It's just that, raising that strong-willed child, I think, could be very difficult. Mm-hmm. But like in the long run, all right, that 30,000 foot view, 50,000 foot view, that's a phenomenal character trait to have someone that has like some internal fortitude, a backbone. And so it's like, develop that, because we need strong people, going forward. And it's like that's how it starts off as a kid, right? So like, that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah. All right, let's take things and really lighten it up.
Okay.
So let's talk about gear. talked about early on, you like audio. You're an audiophile. You're really into like the speakers, the equipment, that kind of thing.
Always like gear.
But what? Yeah, then backpacking, right?
Photography came next.
Photography.
I mean, I even had a dark rig, right?
That's crazy.
So like, and again, it's like the photography is a great thing because it's like it is very gear oriented,
Right.
But it's for a purpose,
Right.
And then later came say backpacking,
Yeah.
and it's like I will say
your gear as light as it could possibly be,
right, because
in the 30s or 40s, whenever you were doing your Appalachian Trail stuff, a light pack was like 65 pounds.
it's heavy.
Whereas now,
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, as far I was thinking earlier that, I mean, probably a regret of mine is that, I did have an aspect of my life that I never really transferred to any of you all, and that was like the love of backpacking. I think backpacking is the only thing I've ever been great at. I was a very good backpacker.
and built for it.
And I was built for it.
Yeah.
I mean, God made me that way, and it was easy. It came easy for me,
Well, I do in the Army. It's kind of like backpacking.
Yep. But I mean, I could blaze a trail,
Forced backpack.
and but like for that love of backpacking, it didn't really transfer.
Right.
So maybe a bit of
Time. Right.
Right. It's a time and energy thing. Right.
Totally.
Right. That's right.
But yeah, so gear. Talk to me. What you're interested. It's that you send me articles all the time about different gear, gadgets, cars, that kind of thing, tech, phones, that type of thing. What is what's some gear that you either super interested in and like looking to buy, or stuff that you've had in the past that you just couldn't have lived without? It doesn't have to be related in any way, shape, or form to fatherhood. It can be.
I'm a bit of a gearhead wannabe because a lot of the things I was interested in I could never afford. Right, and it's like I think that
Lair F1.
had I had the resources, right? I mean, I would be on maybe the bleeding edge of things,
Yeah.
like wasting money on things. But so some of these things were more like fantasy oriented, right?
For example,
I mean, it could be knowing all the nuances of say a fancy car or something like that, but knowing that you can never buy it, right? But I will say, like you mentioned, backpacking. I mean, backpacking does involve. I mean, it can get very high tech. All the materials and light, lightness and things like that. And it's like what you realize. I mean, fortunately, when I was in college, I had the opportunity to do an extended through what's called a through hike on the Appalachian Trail. And so, I mean, the time didn't permit, but I did have a plan in place, and I hiked about 600 miles from
how many total miles?
The entire trail. I think the Appalachian Trail is probably somewhere around 2,000 to 2,100 miles.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but I basically hiked the southern third of it, and so all of Georgia and all of North Carolina, Tennessee, into Virginia.
Yeah.
And right at the point where the trail starts to kind of mellow out a little bit and become a little easier. But one of the things that I discovered then was that it's not about the gear. Okay. It's like when you first start off in something,
About the gear.
it's all about the gear. And
Yeah.
you acquire the gear, but then when you actually start to use things, you realize that that's not the most important thing.
Right.
Right. And so, but it takes a while to figure that out. And it could be that maybe if you're just weekend hiking, you would never figure this out.
Never.
But when you become more of a through hiker, a long distance hiker, where it's day after day after day, it's just like anything that you might do, that you're going to have good days and bad days. And it's no different than living a simplified life on the trail. It's that way. But so you just get a different perspective, right? It's a longer term perspective of like what's this all about,
Right.
and so like yes, gear is fun.
Yeah.
Just pick something that there's the gear. The gear is interesting. Whether you're a carpenter and you like all the tools,
Yeah.
a landscaper, and you are in athletics, or you're more technically inclined and you're looking at the next laptop or smartphone, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like, ultimately, it's not about the gear.
Yeah. I learned that same lesson. Cycling, right? Getting gear, everything about every bike and what, the minor nuances between, ceramic ball bearings to like regular at the end of the day. I mean, it does.
It does matter.
But there's a certain like tipping point, in cycling in particular. If you want to be competitive, you need you got to spend a minimum of about $2,000 on a bike.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, at that point, the equipment would be holding you back.
It's an obstacle, right?
But once you get kind of over that threshold, that's with road cycling. Mountain biking, it might get a little bit more expensive, unless you want to do a fully rigid single speed class, which is nuts. But you can be competitive on something that is at that price point. You don't need the Lamborghini of bicycles. Certainly helps. And if it is for some people, like buying that expensive piece of gear is what they need to be able to take it seriously, to take it from, being recreational to like, okay, now I am no longer identifying as an amateur here. Like, I take this very seriously and I'm investing a lot into it. So it might not even be that the technical advantage that you get with that piece of gear, psychological, but it's a psychological like investment.
Well, it's a commitment. I'm committing my resources towards this endeavor.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, I've learned that. So people will now ask me like, what kind of bike should I buy? I'm like, honestly, they're, as long as you're above this price point, you're gonna be on something that is worthwhile and cool. Just get whatever you think you like. Go get a professional bike fit, and then choose whatever they tell you will fit you, and then that way you can have the best experience on it. But don't cheap out. At the same time.
No.
Let's talk about cars.
Okay.
We both kind of have a passion for cars. I remember staying up late watching WRC rallies, Formula One, that kind of thing. It was kind of those first events that I was allowed to stay up past bedtime.
Mm-hmm.
What was your first car?
Well, my first car was it was a family car. So it was the Ford Gran Torino. Green.
Nice.
Right?
So like bright green or like dark green?
No, it wasn't like more like
a Crayola crown.
More like a darker green. Something a little darker than an army green.
Is it fast?
But no, not particularly.
No. Got the job done.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
So,
do you have any crazy experiences with that first car?
Oh no, I didn't. But I did have some crazy experiences. Like it came later.
Yeah.
I don't think I even talked to you about this.
How many cars do you think you own?
I don't know. I haven't really owned that many cars. I mean, but
you haven't talked to me about this. All right, I'm
no. When I was in college, I had a friend that is
Audi, right?
No. This particular friend, we would study together, and this is but he had an Alfa Romeo Spider. And but his name was Dave.
Our guy.
His name was David, and he also was like into motocross.
Okay.
And
Hare Scramble.
It was called Hare Scramble, right? And I went to Auburn University, and he was from Selma, Alabama. And I remember one weekend, basically going, stayed with him at his home, and I got to go out, and he at that time I was kind of into photography, and I guess he learned that, and so I went out to basically shoot some pictures.
Oh, cool!
This is back in the film days, right? So I had my
rolls of film.
I had my Nikon and my telephoto lens.
Yeah,
went and shot pictures and stuff like that, but. That was my first experience in watching someone that was like really skilled.
Oh yeah.
At Hare Scramble or motocross type of, dirt bike riding.
Yeah.
And just kind of watching them ride up these gigantic hillsides and like catch air and just like kind of the beauty of that. Taking pictures of that was fun. And but he also, like at school, he had an Alfa Romeo Spider that he would, I'm sure, I mean, he was not from an affluent family, and so I mean it was probably many years used. But we would go out in his Alpha Spider and just like he was driving, and I mean he had these super bright headlights, and I remember just like the first time ever doing like figure eights, in this little Alpha Spider, and then from that I think I thought, hey, I can do this. So. Around Auburn, there were lots of like little country roads and things. And I had at the time, I think it was a Plymouth TC3. I mean, it looked fast, but it kind of looked kind of like edgy and fast, but it was really not that hot of a car.
Yeah.
I think one night I went out by myself, and I was like trying to replicate this sort of thing on these dirt roads, and I almost got myself in a situation where I was going to have to call a wrecker, and I don't even recall now how I got myself out of it. But I was like really sweating I was driving beyond my capacity. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And
You get stuck?
I got stuck, but somehow I got it with some ingenuity. Got myself out of the situation.
Yikes. Did you have the shutter back glass in the Plymouth TC?
Actually, I think I did. I believe I did.
It kind of looks like a Fox the Fox Body Mustang. It kind of looks similar to that. Interesting.
Actually, I mean, that little car, I think it actually had like a Volkswagen block or something in it, so but it wasn't too powerful.
Yeah.
It was kind of sporty.
What are some of your favorite cars that you've owned?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I've ever owned a favorite car.
Honda Pilot.
I did like the Honda Pilot. I just like the simplicity of it.
That's your dad car.
Very much so. But I've always liked Hondas and I've always liked Volkswagen. It's just because I like the simplicity.
Das Auto.
Yep. That there's no fluff there. It's just like everything's kind of intuitive. And when you sit in one of those cars, you can just all the knobs and dials are probably touch screens now, or where they fall naturally. And
I picked up on the VW Bug.
Yeah,
or not I didn't buy a VW Bug. I caught the VW Bug. Yeah, and so I've had a lot of Volkswagen cars as well.
Yeah, the car that I always wanted but never bought. Probably because I kind of thought it was kind of like below where I should be in life, and that was the Subaru WRX. That was the rally car, right?
I got one of those.
But at that point in my life, I was kind of like energized by that. I like that, but I kind of felt like that's a little bit too much of a boy racer car.
You could have got the Saab 92X Aero, which we ended up doing later.
True.
That's a whole other story. And then like, if you currently drive a Volkswagen Passat, but like if you could choose any car that's on the market today, like what would you answer?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe if I only could have like one car, maybe for the rest of my life, I probably would want to. At this stage of my life, I'm not hauling a family around, right? So, probably something more iconic, like the Porsche 911 or something like that.
Nice.
Would be
ideal.
Yeah.
The new Panamera with the wagon style Panamera, it actually looks kind of cool.
I didn't like the early Panameras.
No,
that kind of turned me off.
Yeah.
Maybe if they would change the name of it now, I might be more relevant.
The Panamera Gran Turismo, I think is what it's called. It goes super nice.
Yeah.
And then some of their EVs too, like the shooting brake style Porsche EVs are really good looking in my opinion. So you're a professional. Let's talk about your professional life a little bit.
Okay.
As in finance. We're going to keep this one a little bit short.
I'll try.
With work, would like to talk a little bit about things that you learned from work that you're grateful for.
Things at work that I'm grateful for?
Yeah.
Okay.
It could be lessons. It could be experiences.
I had a boss one time. This is when in Atlanta, I was working down at Colony Square, which is, up on one of the towers. And I had a really interesting boss. And I was the assistant to the president. Right. So I kind of I was prideful. I think I'm a prideful person, and I took pride in that title.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't really mean a whole lot. But my boss was a really interesting guy.
Yeah.
And he was a very creative man. The business I was involved in was kind of like it was more or less a regional or a financial / legal firm. And very, very innovative thinking going on. There was ahead of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But my boss said one time to me, he said, "Clint, there's 5% of the people are going to love you no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a similar 5% are going to dislike you or hate you no matter what you do." And it's like, you kind of have to, you should ignore the tails of that bell curve, right? And so, if you think of it that way, a lot of things in life are like a bell curve, and like on either side, those are called tails.
Mm.
It's like the extremes. To ignore that, and so kind of focus your attention more on the middle. And so that that was one of the things that kind of always made an impact on me. Another thing he told me one time was that what you fertilize grows. It's like these kind of simple little tidbits of wisdom, right, that basically come through years of hard knocks, right? And I think that's important too. It's like the fertilizer to me, what that means is encouragement. Like in terms of like maybe leaving a legacy or like with other people, it's like, giving them a thumbs up, more or less, or a pat on the back. Say, way to go. Kudos.
I love that.
Kudos.
Yeah.
Good for you. Keep doing more of that.
Yeah.
These sorts of things. I think it's really important to me. I don't know that other people may not interpret this, but my desire in life is to be an encourager. So I think that I probably have failed at that in many ways, or maybe my own perceptions of myself are different from other people's perceptions, right? Which is probably true of all of us. We think that we're one way, other people view us another way. But I mean, I would like to be viewed as someone that was an encourager. So
going down that path a little bit, let's talk about. You said that maybe you didn't live up to that. What regrets do you have from work?
Oh, I don't know. I think that when I compare myself maybe to people who were like friends of mine who were like equally capable, but took different approach. Excuse me. Who took different approaches. I think for one thing, it's sometimes I was too persistent. So it's like I think being persistent at something, like being relentless, is one of my character traits. It's not something that I necessarily have done on my own. It's just this is like comes back to like just a hardwiring from the factory,
right?
Like from the way I was created. So I don't take credit for that. But sometimes you can take your greatest attribute, the thing that comes easy for you, right? And too much of that can become your Achilles heel.
Yeah,
too much of a good thing.
I see that.
You see?
Yeah,
it's like the bell curve, right? You get too far out to one edge, and now you're in the danger zone.
Yeah,
right. A great. It's like we need air and we need water, but it's like you can drown. You can kill yourself by drinking too much water.
Too much water, you drown the basement, and then
not enough, and
too much air, and the fire gets really big.
Exactly. So it's like a lot of things in life. It's not necessarily yes or no, like black or white. It's like it's in the gray zone, right? And that's where it's like maybe not a science. It's more of an art. It's a dance. It's a balance. So I don't know what were we talking about? Regrets. So regarding work, it's a balancing act. So it's like I think at times I was too persistent at something, and it's like maybe I should have like when I was working for other people. You get to a point where you're not going to really go any further, right? And so like at that point, it's probably best to like
cut ropes, pop smoke.
Exactly. And switch to something else where you can keep going, keep improving, and keep advancing, and that's not a bad thing. So it's like in some ways I would maybe I kind of like at the time you live in your own time and space. And you don't recognize some things at the time, but later you do. And being able to switch gears and go from one place to another where you can keep accelerating, keep going. I think I missed some opportunities there in doing that, because like looking at maybe what other peers had done, they were less patient. They were less patient,
right?
And so like they were more. It just came easier for them to like switch. And I think, but in today's world is a little different too, because I think the mindset these days is, the loyalty factor between employer and employee doesn't really exist like it. I mean, maybe it never existed. But it was like a little bit different then.
Sure.
So today, just because the mindset's different today, that may not be such a problem as it was for me, or maybe older people. But
so like where you talked about earlier, like maybe the lessons that you learned from your father. So if I look at my life based on that statement you just made, as far as like persistence, my persistence has been to like always be like out there learning, doing, being better, doing more. And because of that, like maybe the needle is in the like far opposite direction in this case, because I've done so many different things and have so much different experience, that, you know, some could say that I might be a little fickle with sticking with something. But then I don't remember what stage of life I was in, but you gave me a piece of advice to fail fast. Right. So try something. If it doesn't work, get out.
Right.
You know, tried it, didn't work, and then move on with it. Don't keep beating your head against the glass. You know, it's kind of like the analogy of like the fly in the glass. They it doesn't matter how hard it flies into that glass, it's never going to bust through. Ever. So don't waste your energy on something that you can't overcome.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So as far as regrets, maybe you're sticking with something too long where you should have switched gears.
In my case, you know, being too patient, too persistent, because those are just like kind of character traits that I have, and it's like too much of a good thing in that case. But I mean, your situation would be different. Everyone's situation would be different. But take the thing that comes naturally easy for you, or the thing that you're talented at, you're gifted with, right? Not maybe it's a God-given gift, but then you've taken it to the next level, and through hard work, time, effort, but too much of that can be a bad thing. So it's like I think that's maybe to be. This is all individualistic, but for each person, consider their own circumstances, what and what that might be for them. So like what's true for me, what might not be true for you.
Would you say that you were ever satisfied with your work?
At times, there were some things, later when I started my own business, particularly so much of my work was very analytical, and I created some tools, like computer, software and things like that for my own use that I like basically developed over time. That thinking back, I don't know how I did some of those things, right? Yeah. And it was just like constant time and attention, right. And just thinking, right? So I'm proud of some of the things, like my own creativity, like what I was able to do with some of those things.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, it's like you're chasing the horizon.
Yeah.
Right. And you can just never quite get there. And again, it's like you're maybe you're gunning to be better, or your perfection. But it's like some of these things are not attainable. Yeah. And then it becomes a matter of balance. And it's like, okay, in the pursuit of that thing, what are you neglecting? Right. Right. And so that can be true, like the delicate balance between work and home. And we're made to work. Yeah. Right. And like men are made for that. Right. And we want to be life changers. We want to be difference makers. Sure. Right. And it's like sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't, or it can be for good or for bad. But it's like, how do you balance home life with work life? It's not an easy thing. Yeah.
You feel like you did a good job of work-life balance?
At times I do, and at times I don't. So again, it's like, it's not a yes/no answer. But sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Can you think of any big, major setbacks with regards to your professional life?
Well, my professional life was involved in finance, and so specifically personal finance. And I became a certified financial planner, and in some ways, I think that was a mistake to pursue that, because I'm wired to be more of a specialist, and to be a certified financial planner, you need to be more or less a generalist, right? And because I'm also somewhat of an optimizer, I could grasp the broad spectrum of like the big picture. I could grasp the big picture, right? But it's like fields like, say, law or say medicine. Those subject matters are so broad and so deep that you can't be great at the entire spectrum of everything, right? And so but yet in the world of finance or personal finance, I was kind of like trying to do that, to like understand it all and as deep as it goes, right? And it took a while to figure out that it's impossible, right? And again, being someone that's so persistent and patient, not always patient with myself, but that's an impossible target. So I think that actually for me, the way I'm wired, I probably would have been better off if I could have like specialized on something or like narrowed the scope of my focus. And I could have, I think I could have made quicker advances, just like becoming an expert at a single thing, or or not necessarily being an expert, but being very good at something, and to have that sense of continual progress, that you're making progress, you're getting better at something constantly, so that I think that looking back, if I could do it all over again, I would probably do that a little differently. I mean, another thing also is like, I remember when I was younger getting some, I would call it bad advice, that I just kind of latched onto. It's like I said, when I was younger, I was always interested in technical things, right? Like I said, I mean, I had a HP 12C or whatever, a programmable calculator before anyone else did, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I was always interested in these things. And it's like, it could very well have been that, I should have pursued maybe something in the computer science field, right? But at one point in time, I don't know, I heard someone say that, like programming or, computers, that sort of thing was a young person's career, that basically, and so always being kind of forward looking, I'm thinking, well, my goodness, I'm not going to be young forever. And so I would like more or less age myself out of this career. That doesn't make sense to pursue something that you're going to grow out of. Right. But, and so like, but as we all know, technology is everything now. Totally. So, I mean, there may have been, in the plan, the alternate universe, had I taken another path, who knows? Right. You might be in Silicon Valley and doing completely different things.
Right. So I think so you don't have like a one specific, other than receiving that bad advice, as far as setbacks are concerned, it was just maybe a little bit too broadly focused your career.
It just makes it, yes, I mean, but it makes things like you set up like the playing field to play a game that is like very difficult to play. Right. And to like, so in some cases it's good to have grand visions, but to be able to narrow the focus, I think is important, and it's also like your life has different chapters. And it's like, maybe you can't do it all right now. And so you have to like do some things later, or you have to do maybe one thing before you can do the next thing. Right. So,
followed a lot of different people in the self-development world and entrepreneurs, that type of thing. And I can't remember exactly who said it, but they said that the way that we live our lives is based off of what we believe is to be true. And then
how else can you live?
And then people that are more successful than us are doing exactly the same things, but the truths that you believe to be true aren't actually true. So you're living this, it's seemingly by these true core concepts, but you just got bad advice.
It could be.
And so you need to be able to seek out a person that's a little bit more successful, which is the whole point of this podcast, right? For me to talk to fathers, and it's this is a result of me trying to be the best that I can be. And I think this is going to be the most important chapter of my life, and success leaves clues. So it's up to me to uncover those clues from the men who've been there, done that before, and kind of pick out, the topics here and there that will help me to be the best father, and then to share it with the community here.
And success takes time. So, I mean,
exactly.
You know,
10 years to an
10 years to an overnight success. And it's like, when you look around and you see someone that's successful and like, other people are envious of that success, right? But what they don't see is they don't see like all the blood, sweat, and tears that led up to that. Maybe they don't see the damaged relationships where someone was focusing all their attention on work and not family, or they didn't see the maybe financial catastrophes that someone went through until the point where they ultimately reach success. Right? They only see like the tangible benefit,
right?
And they don't see like the effort, the hard effort, the sleepless nights. The constant attention that the success requires sometimes. Other people don't see that. Those are the intangibles, right? And it's like, for example, how many people have you probably have heard at one point or another, I wish I could play the piano like that. Well, no, they don't. Because if they really wanted to play the piano, they would spend 6 hours a day, sitting in front of it, right?
Exactly.
So like they want the success, they want the outcome, but they don't want to like pay the price on the front end to get to to do what it takes to get that outcome. Right. And it's like, we all can pursue opportunities, but they come at a cost. It's like, you can't do everything. So like you have to narrow, the better part of wisdom would be to narrow the focus of what you're trying to achieve and to like incrementally, systematically over time, so like success comes with time. Right. So like, yes, success does leave clues. But sometimes you can't measure success today. You have to like wait, because it might take someone a lifetime to achieve success. Yeah. So like, don't judge that person like today based on maybe what they've even done up to today, because their life's not over yet. Yeah. Right. So to give other people grace. Yeah. And allow them to be successful and like just encourage people and don't discourage them. Yeah. And now maybe someone should be discouraged if they're chasing something that's like a fantasy and it's never going to happen. It's like, you're 5'5" and you're not going to play basketball. I'm sorry, you're never going to be great at basketball, even if you have a passion for it. Or you're 6'9", you want to be a jockey. Exactly. So it's not going to happen. So like, reality check there, but yeah.
Very good. So back on the discipline kick, let's talk about self-discipline.
Okay.
You're very into, you said earlier, maybe not the best listener in the world, so you chose to start following some podcasts and where you forced to listen and there's nobody to talk back to. That's true. Interesting. What areas of life do you feel like you're the most disciplined, and what areas do you feel like you're the least disciplined?
Well, discipline's kind of a gray area. And because discipline's kind of, yes, you can measure it somewhat, but to me, a lot of discipline comes down to consistency. And just, now, I do some things like every day.
Especially right now.
For fitness, so like, virtually every day, I will either go for a walk, and
these are not short strolls either.
No. They're not necessarily epic, but they're like they're daily walks of an hour and 15 minutes, something like that, consistently. Or it could be running. Yeah, running is a fairly more recent thing that lasts, within the last 6-8 years.
Cycling too.
And cycling, I this year I've not cycled any this year, but all these are kind of long, more of endurance type activities, and this it's. I'm not a great athlete. I never have been a great athlete. But it's like these physical things are in some ways they're just part of the process. It's more of a mental discipline. Yeah, and exercise or fitness is a process. So it's a physical thing, but it's more than that. It's more of a mental state. It's this as being a cyclist, but it requires a certain degree of fortitude. Right. And so fortitude, I love that word. But it's a character trait that transcends into other things. And so that's the purpose. The purpose is to build a mental state that can be used for other things. And so it's like. It's not about the bike, right? It's about more important. It's not about the gear, right? It's about something bigger than that. So yeah. But that's a daily endeavor that I would say that I'm very disciplined at that and consistent at that.
So what are you inconsistent with?
Oh, I don't know. I think with me,
What is something you're inconsistent in that you wish that you were consistent with? Because I inconsistently drink, but I'm okay with that.
Drake.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's not something I need to do consistently. But there's other things that in my life that I wish I was more consistent with.
I think in some ways I'm kind of like I'm hardwired. I would be a great hermit. I could easily be a hermit, right? Because I'm in my own head most of the time, and but yet I'm self-aware enough to know that I'm introverted, and I mean I can be social, and I can be engaging with other people, but it's like that's something that sometimes I have to like kind of be force myself to do or be proactive. I have to like turn it on. It doesn't necessarily come naturally.
Yeah.
But like, I can be in a group of people and I can be the first to engage. It's not a problem, but with that. But in some ways, because it doesn't come so naturally and easy for me, I mean, sometimes I have to like remind myself to like reach out to people. And so that would be something, I mean, you could maybe categorize that under the area of discipline that because it doesn't come naturally to me to reach out to people that maybe I could bring some discipline to that.
Yeah.
And like whether it's something is systematized, whether it's like putting something on the calendar,
Right.
or to call someone, that sort of thing, right? So I mean, it's easy to do the things that you're good at. The things that come harder are the things that you don't want to think about,
Right.
or you don't want to deal with it, or it's just off the radar screen, right? And it's like that doesn't mean you can't do those things, but it means that those things are going to require more effort.
Yeah.
And so like if it doesn't come naturally, maybe you have to just kind of get down to the how can we do this, or be better at it.
Totally.
Yeah. So maybe like I might put like relationships maybe in that area. It's like I may not be. I can be relational, but it does like being. It's not necessarily a natural. I'm friendly with people. As long as I'm crossing paths with people, I'm more than I'm friendly as anybody.
Yeah.
But it's like I have to like consciously put myself in the path of another person. It's like to be more outgoing.
Right.
That doesn't come naturally.
Yeah, because earlier you said that to be encouraging to other people
it's important, but if no one else is around, you can't encourage them.
Right.
Right.
So you got to put yourself out there.
You do.
And that was something you said you'd like to pass on, is that encouragement where you see that dad that's out there passing the ball with their kid or whatever, that's actively engaged in conversation over the dinner table and not, flipping through Instagram, the news, their stocks, whatever. And then rewarding those people for that in a form of encouragement. So in what ways are you currently, or would you like to give back and serve others?
I'm someone that needs like time to process and contemplate. That's a tough question. I can't just like easily answer.
Yeah.
It's such a deep question, but I think to guide people where I can, maybe to give insights where I can, in a way that's like helpful.
Yeah.
Maybe in some cases where if I'm the one that's the obstacle, to like recognize that and try to deal with that, and like be less of less of that.
Yeah. So I would challenge you, just based off of this conversation, that to daily, like you do with the athletic side of the house, where you have those goals that's like, I will do this every day, no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's 12 o'clock or 11:50 It's like, oh, I haven't done it yet. I got to do it. I might already be in bed. I'm going to roll out of bed. I'm going to get these things done because I made a commitment to get them done, and I'm going to do it and follow through on it. Would be to every day, like, find someone doing something to encourage them, or to share with somebody a piece of encouragement that's like very genuine. It can be somebody completely related to you or not, to reach out and encourage them. And then by that, you're flexing that encouragement, words of affirmation muscle, right?
Right.
And that's the way, like, that's your circle back, your love language. I feel like that'd be really, really helpful. So advice to new fathers or fathers who have children younger than you. You said earlier, pay attention to your kids.
I did.
Any other advice that you have?
Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Yeah.
And we all have hopes and dreams for ourselves, for our families. I mean, our relationship with our spouses, with our parents, family, but specifically our children.
Mm-hmm.
From father to child it's an important relationship, to recognize, the areas of talent your kids may have, and recognize that we're all different and we're all wired differently.
Right.
This is a good thing. It's like, and your children may be very different from you, right? And it's like, you're not any better than them.
Uh-huh.
And so it's, you have to get outside of yourself and to see, that this little creature, this little child, has skills and talents and skills, and they're going to do great things.
Yeah.
Right. But those things may be different from your hopes and dreams, like for yourself. Right. And, I think in some cases, a parent, it's easy maybe to put onto your child what you had hoped that you wish that you had achieved or done, or, something like that. Yeah. That's that can be misdirected. So,
it falls into the category of like, you got the wrong advice, or you stayed on the wrong path too long.
Right. But it's like, they need to be the best. Just like no one else can be you.
Right.
Right. Your competitive advantage is to be the best you can be, because no one else can come close to that. Right. Because that's what comes natural for you. That's who you are. That's being an authentic person. So it's like, don't necessarily try to follow in someone else's footsteps and live someone else's life.
Uh-huh.
Right. It may work out, but most likely it's not going to work out. Right. So you got to figure out, what makes you tick, and just be a better version of yourself. And so, for your children, you should hope for the same thing, right? That they become like the best them and not the best you.
Right.
Right. So, you and I share, some things, and, I admire a lot of things in you, Wes. And some of those traits, they're like, I sometimes tell people that, you are Clint 2.0. You are stronger, faster, smarter, better, right? Version 2.0. Right. And it's like,
yeah.
And it very well may be like, now that you have a son and a daughter,
right,
that, you're going to, Sebastian maybe will be version 2.0 of Wes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And another person that I follow, just online through their education that they put out, said that a lot of leaders, in quotes, or people in positions of power, will hire people that are not as good as themselves, so that they appear to be better, right?
Right.
But if you surround yourself with experts and not have to be the smartest person in the room, then that goes a long way. You'll get a lot further that way than having to be the best at everything. Right. But to that note, you have somebody that is a mentee. So you were a mentor to somebody. And as a father, those are your children. Just plain and simple. I'm sure there's other people in your life. Some people listening probably may not have children at all, but they might be a father figure to somebody or a leader to somebody for sure. But if you pass on the lessons and knowledge, wisdom that you have to other people, and you invest in those other people, you don't need to feel any type of resentment when they pass you. Because if anything, a lot of people have this goal to make things better, right? So if I want to make things better and I have a mentee underneath me, and then once they start to pass me, I start to sabotage them because like, oh, they're doing what I was able to do at 60 and they're 25 or whatever. So they can, it's oftentimes those situations can get kind of sabotaged because it's like, well, no, it took me this long to get to that point. Like it's going to need to take this person that long to get to that point too. Well, the difference is you got to that point when you were X age, but you didn't have you as a guide. So the fact that the person came up underneath you and was able to get to where you are and jump off from that starting point should be the ultimate indicator of success, that you were able to pass on those lessons and that a person was able to meet and surpass you way before, because now you truly are going to allow things to get better because now they're starting from where you're leaving off in some cases, but then they have the opportunity to grow. And then the next person that they influence, if they continue this mindset forward, it's a pretty exponential curve, right? Right. So, yeah, I love it. It's been a great conversation so far. A couple things in concluding. What advice did you get from your father that you will pass on to your children? Or what piece of advice do you wish that you had gotten from your father that you will or have passed on to your daughters?
My father, he has a lot of wisdom, but usually that wisdom would come, it would be like passed down through little sound bites. I mean, and for example, he would say, I can recall him saying things like, how do you eat an elephant? Well, it's one bite at a time, right? So like, that's great advice, right? Because like when you're faced with like an insurmountable challenge, you can't do it all at one time. Yeah, right? It is an incremental. So that's kind of a tangible. I call it a word picture, right? You can kind of picture in your mind eating an elephant, one spoonful at a time, right?
Yeah.
Now, so like internalize that, later as an adult is like, now I'm a huge believer in just like going for small incremental victories, little wins. And so it's like these little victories that you might have, they compound over time, right? And this is where if you have a particular endeavor, something of interest that you are pursuing, right, just to be relentless at it, it's like to relentlessly eat that elephant, right? And it's like, like we discussed the other day, the two of us, that if you do a particular activity for like, I think it's 3 minutes and 57 seconds per day, every single day of a 365-day year, at the end of that year, on December 31st, you will have spent an entire 24-hour day doing a particular thing.
Nice.
So that's an illustration of how just like, literally 4 minutes a day of of something adds up to an entire day in 1 year's time.
And it's really more than a day because we spend, a third of the day sleeping.
Yes, you do. That's right. If you look at your active living day, that's right. So, I mean, now on,
so eat an elephant one time.
Well, that's
eat an elephant
one bite at a time. One little step at a time. I mean, and hiking is no different, right?
Yeah.
Backpacking. It's like, and I have the mindset of a long distance hiker. So it's like every now and then you would reach a summit and you could literally look back over maybe from one summit to a valley or a peak or something, 80 miles away, 100 miles away. And you think, I was back there a week ago, right? It's like the day to day, it's like that each step when you're like sweating your guts out and you're going up a hill where you're heading to what looks like the peak, and then you get up there and it turns a corner and it keeps going up. And these are demoralizing moments, right? Yeah. But it's like that builds like a strength. And every now and then you have the ability to a glimpse back of where you were, right? Or you might be able to see like where you have to go, and sometimes something looks like impossible, but then you persist at it. So you need to maintain like a long-term view of things, but also be able to function in the day-to-day. It's a dance. And I mean, in my case, growing up, I mean, I think that I would have benefited every now and then had I got like maybe a pat on the back and like, hey, way to go, Clint. That was awesome. Or keep going. It's like, great job. I didn't get a lot of that. None of us have perfect parents, and we're not going to be perfect, and it's important to like have grace for your own parent and grace and forgiveness, and then but also for yourself, because you might have high expectations of yourself, and you might find that you fall short. But in the end, maybe at the end of your life, you want to be able to look back and say, hey, you fought the good fight. You fought the good fight, and you did the best you could with what you had at the time. And it's like, you can't. Yes, we're all going to fall short, and yes, there'll be regrets, right? But we want to be able to, like, the goal. I think we all want to be able to look back when we're older, and have that feeling. There will be regret. I mean, no one lives a perfect life, and there will be like catastrophes that occur, hardships, adversities, obstacles, and it's like but quit tomorrow. Don't quit today. Just keep going. And, you chase the horizon. It's like whatever you're going through, just keep going. Right. And then tomorrow, you just persist at it. And I think as you get older, some of that understanding, hopefully you can pass it on to younger dads or friends or children, and to like this is like the encouragement to keep going, right? To fight the good fight.
I'd like to hit on something before we leave this topic. You said, keep going, fight the good fight. That is, in a broad sense, you talked about earlier, maybe having been too persistent down a path that maybe you could have been a little bit better at. How would you tell fathers to identify that they're on the wrong path and they need to switch direction and guide their energy elsewhere where they can have a bigger impact? Like, how do you see the forest through the trees in those scenarios?
It's like when you're in the forest, it's hard to have a bigger perspective, right? It's like, 10 years from now, you're going to know things you don't know now, right? 20 years from now or 30 years from now, right? You're going to have acquired new knowledge and new insights, new wisdoms. You're going to be like a better version of yourself. That's where, like, hopefully so, right? And this is where, like, it used to be that people had like a respect for their elders, and I think that they realized that that there's the senior members of their society had this built up wisdom of like the school of hard knocks, where they personally learned things, or they saw things that happened to other people, right? And so like there are going to be things that you know in the future that you don't know now, and you can't possibly know them now because you're not in the future. You're here and now. So it's like we can all be blindsided by like our own perceptions of ourselves or the world around us,
or even our own truths.
Our own truths, right? It's like, what's real, right? It's hard to know what's real, and so sometimes we can be very insightful and very accurate, and sometimes we can have it all mixed up and wrong, right? And so I think it is helpful to have people, good friendships, people that deep friendships, people that you trust, that you can they can act as a sounding board, and that you can gain better insights into yourself. It's like they say that if you live inside of yourself, like you're inside the box,
right?
So like it's impossible for you to like have a perception of what the outside of the box looks like, and you need a friend or someone that can see the outside to see how you really are, right? So I think that it could be selective in who you pick for friends, and to try to gain insight from other people, and to get a clearer picture of you yourself, maybe your performance, how you're coming across,
right?
And to learn from that, and stay like be humble, and stay open to change, to be better. So
be willing to accept that information, even if it's not what you want to hear.
Could be, and that,
because that is like you asked for it, and that's that person's perception of the situation.
I think we all know that. I mean, we can take advice from some people, and then from other people, we have a hard time taking it, right? And
I've got a buddy that said that his son, like he said the same thing over and over and over and over again, and then one of our other buddies said the same thing to that guy's son, and he's like, you know what? That's right. And it just takes the message being delivered by the right messenger.
That's right. And the other thing is the messenger, they may not have like a true picture of you either, right? Because all they know is what they know from their frame of reference. It's hard to like know like the real. None of us are God, right? And so we don't know like what's in someone's heart. We don't know everything about that person. Even someone that's close to you may not like really know all of you. So it could be that you might have a very charismatic friend, like maybe even someone that's domineering that is very good at making arguments, and they might have a wrong assessment of you. So I think it's important to have maybe more than one point of reference, because it could be you have a very like smart, intelligent person that has the wrong assessment. So it's like you can have a wrong assessment of yourself, someone else can have a wrong assessment of you too. So having multiple points of reference would be helpful.
Absolutely.
But you have to stay open to that, and it takes a certain amount of humility. And it's hard for a prideful person. I would say I'm a prideful person. I think that maybe hardwired for that.
Yeah.
But so to stay humble can be hard.
Yeah.
Easier for some people than others.
Right.
Right. So,
it's powerful stuff. I want to go back to the elephant one bite at a time.
Okay.
So I saw this thing at a CrossFit gym. I think I was in somewhere in Idaho on the way to Glacier National Park, and stopped at a CrossFit gym to work out, and they had a poster on the wall, and it said, "Getting strong is like moving a pile of dirt. Some days you use a shovel, and some days you use a spoon. But what's important is that every day you move some dirt." So
that's great.
I like that, in addition to the one bite at a time.
I love that. Yeah.
In that, like, it may not feel like you made a lot of progress today, but maybe that was just you using a spoon.
I think it's important that you find a way to talk to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean,
interesting statement. A way to talk to yourself.
It's a way to talk to yourself.
Okay.
Because for a number of years, I think I kind of had this phrase in my own head that I would like. I'd tell myself, stay focused, stay positive, stay focused, stay positive, stay focused, stay positive. You know, and it's like I think if that's a mantra or even like to every now and then it's just when you're in the car and you're just driving to work or you're on a walk or you're in the shower or wherever you might be, right? And like a thought comes into your head, right? Have a way to capture those thoughts, and like whether it's in a notebook, or if it's something on your phone or on your computer, but as these little thoughts.
Dry erase marker in the shower.
Yes, it's not. I mean, exactly. I mean, I love that about you, Wes. I mean, I would never have thought of that, but like, and out you kind of again out of the box.
I think it would work that great. Water and dry erase. Well.
But
grease pen instead.
these little insights that you have, right? Sometimes I think that where do those come from? I don't know, but
sometimes they can be fleeting.
It can be a fleeting thought.
Yeah.
So have a way to capture these fleeting thoughts.
And then you also need to circle back on them at some point too. Like
you do.
Time of the day to reflect on
You do.
stuff.
So create some sort of simple, reliable system.
Yeah.
In which you can capture your thoughts.
Uh-huh.
Or even like if there's something that's on your mind, like a to-do item, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get that out of your head and get it into some simple, reliable system that you can like always go back to, that you can trust, and that over time you can build up this inventory of to-dos or inventory of thoughts, or whatever, some sort of capture mechanism, but keep it simple.
Gotcha.
Keep it simple.
So on that note, what other books, training, education, one item would you recommend for fathers to read or listen to, watch, download, whatever the medium may be?
I mean, I've heard this similar question asked on a lot of podcasts and things, and it's like, like which books would you recommend or so forth. I mean, I don't think that's. I think if I could only recommend one book, it would be the Bible, because there's so much there, right?
I'm glad you said that.
There's so much there, and it's like, I mean, if you're looking for like maybe some kind of daily guidance, I mean, something as simple as like reading one proverb a day.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much content and like there's so much wisdom. I mean, if this, ultimately, if this podcast is about the passing down of wisdom from one generation to the next,
Right.
or like, or
Inspiring fathers to be better.
or from one father to another, some sort of inspirational bit of wisdom,
Sure.
you could do no better than looking at Proverbs, because it covers the gamut, right?
Yeah,
and like I mean, we're all busy, right? We're all busy, but anyone can sit down and like read one proverb a day. Now, this might not be something that you do every single day for the rest of your life, but maybe for a period of time.
For sure.
Let's say a month.
Yeah.
Okay. For 1 month, just systematically set the same bit of time on your daily routine.
Right.
Mornings generally work better.
Yeah.
Before every your day gets captured by someone else. But like maybe first thing in the morning or last thing at night.
Yeah.
But I think that also like like they say, garbage in, garbage out, right? So like it's really easy to put garbage in your head, right? We live in a polluted world. Like mankind is polluted. It's like we're all sinners, right? And we live in a world of sin. And it's like, it's easy to become like polluted just like everyone else, right? It takes effort to try to like purify yourself.
Yes.
And it all I always try to tell you all as children, I said, everything starts in your head. Everything starts in your head. Okay. That's an important concept, because if you don't grasp that, you can get captured.
Yeah. I think if you combine it starts with your head with, what you fertilize grows.
Right.
I think those two things together like play really well off each other.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like as a child, it like all starts in your head. It's like, okay, now as an adult, I can understand what that means. But I feel like as a little child, it's like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Right.
Right. So it has to be kind of like made a little bit more simple.
It does. I mean, this is where, like, as a parent, okay, I think it's like, if you think, I mean, people that are great communicators, okay, like I've heard someone say once, like, we dream in pictures. We don't dream in words, right? We dream in pictures. So it's like the best communicators are people that can translate a bit of wisdom, knowledge into something that's like understandable,
right?
Like to the person that you're talking to.
Right.
So if you're talking to a child, you have to put things in from their frame of reference because they're not an adult yet.
Yeah.
Right. Don't blame them for not being able to think like an adult because they're a child.
Right.
And they're saying now even that like the human brain is like developing until like the age of 25, and that it doesn't even stop there probably. Right. Yeah. So it's like, it's not fair to judge a child as an adult. Because they're not an adult.
Right.
So like you have to like,
but it's your job to turn them into.
It's your job to
give them the tools
to give them something they can understand and grasp where they are right now, right? And so it's like, that concept, it's like how do I translate that into something that's understandable, and that comes easier for some people than others. But I mean today, with the internet and all that, maybe you can even Google that. Or DuckDuckGo that, like to get an answer to like how to do something better. Everything's
but you can also get kind of flooded with knowledge too. So like when I was talking to Mom the other day, she was like, I would not want to be a parent in your generation right now.
Hard.
And I was like, Mom, what are you talking about? We have Uber Eats, Instacart, like we can have anything, like we don't have to ever leave the house. Like everything can just show up here. She's like, yeah, no, but you have all of the knowledge of everybody who's ever been a parent that is like available to you.
I know.
And it's what road do you follow? And how do you stay true to the course? When in my day, it was like magazine articles. I just throw the magazine away. But you can't turn it off. And then you constantly getting like judgment and people like sending you articles on like how you should be doing things. And it makes you inconsistent.
Right.
Or could potentially make you inconsistent.
So you can't do everything. So you have to like really narrow the scope of things down to like something that's actually possible,
right,
doable. And one thing I would like to say to fathers out there, guys, like I said just a minute ago, we live in a polluted world. It's like I really believe that most people are good, but we all have that capacity for good and bad. And it's like every person is good and both a combination of good and bad. We're not, but it's a spectrum, right? It's a bell curve. And it's like, but there are people out there that are not good. They're like, borderline evil.
Yeah.
Right.
Or evil.
Or evil. And it's like hard it's hard as a decent person to like conceive this concept sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's like, you guys really have to be vigilant with your children today, because there are people out there that are perverted, right? And it's like they may not have the best interests of your children at heart, right? And yet some of these people can be very sophisticated and they can be very manipulative, and you have to be careful. You can't always know right off the bat whether someone's okay or not. Right. So like with your own children, again, trust but verify. Right. And so you're gonna have to be vigilant.
Yeah.
And that means anyone that you would entrust your child with, like anyone is in a position of authority. So like, I mean, we've seen all the scandals now, right?
Yeah.
We've seen what's happened in churches. We've seen what's happened like in Boy Scouts. Right. I mean, I heard, a year or two ago, something even like 1 out of 4 boys is like sexually molested. I would never have thought that. It's like, it's unbelievable. Right. And it's usually by someone that's close to the family, like, or maybe some organization or group, maybe someone at school. It could be something like that. It could occur on a church retreat. Or in, like I said, in scouting or something like that. Yeah. Now, fortunately, nothing like that, happened with me, right? And but to my knowledge, didn't happen with you, but it could happen, and it can happen to anybody, right? It's like just be on the lookout that bad things can happen, and it's like no one wants a bad thing to happen like that, right? Or especially any kind of abuse like that, but you have to be on the lookout for it. So I think that's one of our duties as a parent is to be on the on the lookout. You know, so you don't know what's coming, but you want to have your antennas up, right? And hopefully that sort of thing never happen. None of us want bad things to happen to our children. Now, some tragedies occur, that they just happen, right? And it's like we might not, maybe someone is to blame. Maybe it's just the circumstances. It's like, there's no finger pointing. It's just like a bad thing that happened. It's like whatever. And it's like you have to get through it. And, in most of the time, like the things that don't kill us makes us stronger, right? Always. But some things, that's not always true. And like a lot of these things that we hear, they're not always true, right? It's like, I have heard people say in the past, everything happens for a reason or whatever. It's like, I don't know. Is that like now? I think
you can find the reason in everything that happens.
Yes, you can find good out of bad, right. But
and learn those lessons.
That's not necessarily meant for you that bad thing happened for that. Yeah.
Yes. Are you familiar with the ACE test?
I don't think so.
Okay. So it's a test that they've given to I don't know who. This is outside of my scope of understanding, but it is basically, it goes through a list of questions of things that existed around you when you were a child.
Mm-hmm.
And you go through, it's just a questionnaire. It's very similar to going through a Myers-Briggs, that kind of thing, but just answering questions like yes, no, sometimes, always, whatever. And at the end, it gives you a grade. But it talks about a lot of things that you were talking about. And so I took the ACE test and I literally scored a 0, right? Which is, as the person who told me to take it, he's like, wow, you were beaver cleaver. You weren't exposed to any real negative anything.
Right.
And so people with a low ACE score tend to do really well.
Okay.
In life in general.
Right.
But if you have a score of, I think it's over 4, between 4 and 7, it's very likely that if you don't have a high level of resiliency, and which usually comes in the form of some sort of mentor-mentee figure, then your life is going to turn for the worst.
Okay.
And so pretty much guaranteed, if you have a score between 4 and 7, you're going to get into some sort of trouble if you have a low resiliency score. If you have a high resiliency score, it is almost always the case that those people find themselves in service positions. So military, police, child protective services, social workers, that type of thing. If you go and administer this test to the people that work in those job fields, it's almost certain that they're going to be on the spectrum 4 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
If you're over a 7,
interesting,
you're in jail.
Interesting.
There's no functioning people with a score over 7 that are not incarcerated.
Okay.
And so when people say kids are resilient, they're actually not.
Yeah.
So, and if they don't get that encouragement and that the mental emotional ability to be resilient, and they're exposed to some stuff as a kid, they're never going to be successful.
Yeah.
So it's good. So it would be, I think, a good thing, like you were saying on this topic, to just be aware, is to maybe take a look at that test and the questions that are on it, and kind of figure out a way to almost self-administer that test to people that are over your children. Not in such a out there and literally asking the question verbatim, because that would be really weird.
Right, that would be
because it's that'd be odd. Did anybody in the household when you were younger drink alcohol around or abuse alcohol or drugs?
But slowly over time, when you have conversations with people, and you can kind of get the temperature, right? So I'm gonna look at that's interesting. I'm gonna look into the ACE thing. I mean, I'll say. Let me say this too, Wes. I mean, when I've as you go through these different chapters of your life, right, and you can look back, and I mean, you do some self-evaluation, and I mean, I look back at my childhood, and I think that I did some things. I mean, things worked out in that I always seem to pick good friends. Okay, I don't know why that is. Okay, but I did, and I mean, a lot of the people that they went on. They probably were from good, solid families. I don't know how all those connections got made.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I was in high school, I mean, I went to one of the larger high schools in Georgia. It was a powerhouse type school.
Yeah.
I mean, and there were some really smart, good kids there, but then there was a lot of bad stuff going on too. But for one reason or another, I avoided all that negative stuff. But like, I mean, I will say this. I mean, it's maybe just of the grace of God, but I mean, I never was around. I was never really around alcohol, or all the sin stuff, right? Like the smoking, tobacco, drug use. I was never around that, right? But like, what if I had been? I don't know that. I don't know that. Like when I was younger, if I would have had like the to withstand peer pressure. Peer pressure, I mean, and peer pressure does not just affect children. Peer pressure, all you have to do is look around. And you can see how adults are every bit as like influenced by their peers as children. Absolutely. But for children don't necessarily have the capacity to like deal with it. Right? So like as a child or adolescent, as a young teen or whatever, had I been exposed to some of these things, I mean, I could just as easily maybe made some wrong decisions and ended up a little different. So it's like, when I look at people that have gone through things like that, I try to like be, show some mercy. Yeah. Because if I was truly in their shoes and encountered everything that they had encountered in their lifetime, it's quite likely I probably would have behaved exactly the same way. So like these people that you talk about, like in prison or whatnot, that they have scored, a certain way on their ACE test. Yeah. Right. And it's like they're kind of set up to like fail.
They will.
Or most likely will.
It's crazy. Like
right.
There's not a strong correlation, but it is correlated at the hip.
Yep.
If you're exposed to
they're linked together. Linked at the hips, right?
That's it.
So it's like as fathers, you want to try to minimize as much of that negative stuff as you can. Right. Right. At the same time, you can't completely shield your children from like bad things. Right. So like when you encounter something, that's like out of your control, to get through it together. Right. Right. It's like, I mean, I told my father a few days ago when I left him, he's 96 years old, amazing man, right? Has very robust for his age, but I mean, we as a family, we suffered the loss of my mother just 2 months ago, and like they were married 69 years and they'd known each other for 70 years, right? It's like, and while my parents were both, they're very different, I mean, they have a unique. They're wired completely different, but yet the two of them together, in a lot of ways, they were better as a team, right? And it's like I'm seeing aspects of my father now that I didn't see like before she had passed, and more the emotional side, right? And so, but I mean, when you're 96 years old, you realize your days are numbered, right? You just lost your wife of 69 years, right? It's like, you're next. And it's like, but I told Dad when I left, it's like, Dad, we're in this together. And we're gonna go through whatever's coming at us together. Right. And so it's important that don't go it alone. You cannot go it alone. I mean, like I said earlier, I could be a great hermit. So my tendency probably is to go it alone, but it's like, I need to be more proactive in like, bringing others along with me. Or me along with them, to go together, because we are stronger together. And so yeah, be proactive in like reaching out to other dads. If you're a new father like yourself, to like tag up with someone that you can relate to, someone that you admire, and like you can encourage each other, right? And it's like one of my lessons I learned from backpacking is that like not everyone makes a great backpacking partner. Yeah, they just don't. Believe me, when you're out there and you're like, if you're going any kind of distance, it's hard. It's really hard going. Yeah. And then you're completely soaked. You've been rained on, or you're dying of thirst or whatever, And it's like, and if you're yoked up with the wrong person, it's like a slinky effect, right? And it's like, of all the different people I hiked with as a young person, I mean, there was only one or two that that I was in sync with.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and that's true of a life partner, or like that's true of your friendships, right? It's like, now we're always there's always gonna be differences in people, and you're gonna have disagreements. I mean, two people at some point, the best of friends at some point in time are gonna have a disagreement on something, and that's completely normal, right? But and sometimes you have to, like, even a spouse or something, you might have to agree to disagree, right? It's like, you like blue, I like green. It's like these things are preferences, and maybe they don't matter. But like on some of the core value things, like it's more problematic. But try to find friendships, other people that you have shared core values.
Yeah,
I mean, that's and for the guys that are dating out there, whatever, they might be hearing this. Look for a life partner who you share core values with, because if there are if you're not harmonized in the things that are like really important, and that those really important things come down to like faith. It's like, what drives you as a person? Right? Are you a faith-based person, or are you like someone that's all you're short term, and you're like, it's all about like just the what can you do for me? That doesn't work, right? So finding someone that you can partner up with, but I think it's good for a dad to have other dads to connect with, and that doesn't mean like you don't have to have a lot of these types of friendships, but you need a few.
Like I think it's John Lee Dumas on the Entrepreneur on Fire. He said you're the sum of the 5 people. I think it's actually a quote from somebody else, but he said you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? And he's like, you've been hanging out with me and so. And it's kind of a cool thing. But no, it really is true. Like the 5 people that you spend the most time with, you end up being very much.
I mean, or at least the gist of that is true, right? There's nothing special about number 5.
No,
but it's the gist of that is true. Yes, you're gonna reflect the people that you hang with, right? So be careful who you hang. Be careful who you hang with, right? It's like, but granted, none of us are perfect. So like, you're gonna have you're not gonna have perfect friends. You're gonna have imperfect friends, and we're all imperfect together, and hopefully we get better together, right?
So in closing, 3 more things.
Okay.
What does it mean to be an inspirational father?
Well, first and foremost, I think that love your kids. It's like being a school teacher. If you don't love kids, you shouldn't be a school teacher. It's like, love your kids, and that means like with your whole person, right? And and not as a conditional love. Like, in other words, if my child does this, then I'll love them. If they don't, then I won't. Right? It's like love is unconditional. It's like, I love you no matter what.
Right.
Okay. It's like, if you're one of those people, one of those kids that ends up in prison, I'm going to love you no matter what.
We'll be happy with you, but I love you.
Yeah. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to earn my love. Right. And so like, but it's easy for a parent to think that way. It's something entirely different for their child to realize that. So it's like, there can be a gap in between those. So like, try to close that gap so that your children know Dad loves me. Okay. He loves me just the way I am. Right now. And I'm proud of you. And be proud of the things that your children accomplish. Right. It's like, and also encourage a growth mindset, so that, and that's not always easy, but it's like, maybe we're not there yet. Right. But we're in the pursuit of something, right? We're getting better at something, or, we're making progress.
Kind of like the David Goggins thing. Like the destination is the pursuit.
Yeah, I mean, in his case, David Goggins, I mean, I've seen him on YouTube, and I read his book, and it's like, he had a tough childhood, a childhood of abuse.
He's got a high A score. And this is somebody who like figured out resiliency.
He's like the definition of resilience, right? So like, that's And so like, that's his superpower.
Yeah.
Right. And so like other guys, I mean, David Goggins, I mean, he has rough language, but that was the world he grew up in.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, he's actually being authentic to himself.
Right.
Like, that's how, and so like, and a lot of other kids are like growing up in the same kind of environment. Right. And so like, here's someone that like, they can like latch onto.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, maybe David Goggins is not like the perfect, you shouldn't be put up on a pedestal, right? Like he's not a perfect person, just like none of us are. But like there's certain aspects of a person that you can admire and that you can like work towards, right? But it's like, again, you can have too much of a good thing too.
Yeah.
So it's like, be careful who you hold up as your expert or your guru, because like no one has got it all figured out.
Exactly.
It's like, that's the thing. It's like with time, you realize not everyone's got it. No one's got it figured out.
Yeah.
Right.
So what I heard you say on that one was that to be an inspirational father, it's minding the gap between your selfless love for your children or your unconditional love for your children and their perception of that.
I think that's well said. That's one aspect.
Yeah.
Right. This is a multi-pronged.
No, I really like that because if they know that your love is unconditional, like how inspirational is that? It's awesome. I love it.
I mean, it's sometimes, it's hard to convey. It's hard to convey like maybe what's in your mind or what's in your heart to another person, right? Because it's like what's really important is how someone else perceives something, right? And it's like none of us have like a perfectly clear picture. None of us have 20/20 vision of like what's real. Right. All we have is like our perception of something.
Reality, exactly.
Right. And that's true of like the perceptions we hold of other people. It's like we don't have, as well as you might know someone, you don't have them like 100% figured out. Right. You don't know necessarily what drives them or everything that they ever did in life.
Yeah.
Right. And some things you're never going to know. Right. What someone did, why someone did a certain thing or didn't do a certain thing. Yeah. So it's deep. That's deep stuff.
Totally. Hit on a lot of really good stuff. So one of the last two pieces here is a challenge for our listeners. And so what this is a daily / weekly challenge. And it can be literally in any arena that you can imagine. So it could be fitness, nutrition, relationships, social, literally whatever you want.
Okay.
Challenge the other fathers and listeners of this podcast for the next week until the next guest challenges us with theirs.
Well, like I said earlier, my tendency is to overcomplicate things, right? And however, it's better to keep things simple. And I would go for the low hanging fruit. Okay, so like again, I come back to like go for
challenge.
Go for something that is like doable. Something that's a little bit beyond hard, but less than impossible. Okay, so like there's a certain zone that you want to be in. It's hard, but it's not impossible. Try to be in that zone, and then find something that where you can make progress towards that, and you can incrementally have some sort of a victory. Okay, some kind of progress that's like something achievable, right? And like, but start rather than setting such a lofty high goal. Bring that down. Okay, and just start small.
Yeah.
Start. It's like someone that's weightlifting, right? It's like it doesn't matter where you start. It does not matter, right? What matters is like, progress and or maybe where you end up. It's like take the long view. Yeah. Take the long view. Bring it down and just like work at something that and consistently where you have some results. Maybe something that you can measure. It could be something. I think anything that's like fitness related is like. That's a good place to start. Yeah, because some of these other things are actually harder than fitness. Yeah, right. It's like, or even like if someone has a physical challenge, maybe they have a health issue or something like that. Yeah, I think it's much easier. I had accident physically on a cycling accident, but like as tough. I mean, basically, 4 months of hell and a halo brace, right? Exactly, breaking my neck from a bad bicycling accident.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, that's something that everyone can see. It's kind of tangible. It's like everyone knows you're in pain, right?
Right.
But it's like actually dealing with a physical problem is much, much easier than something that is like maybe deeper than that. Something that's like an emotional problem or something so go for the low-hanging fruit and that is something that's doable and achievable.
Yeah.
And then over time, like your lifetime, you can like knock down the harder things, right? Because at that point, because you're not born with confidence, okay? Confidence has to be earned.
Mm-hmm.
No one can give you confidence. Now, like you can give courage. You can be an encourager.
Yeah.
I love that, right?
Yeah.
To encourage means to give courage, right? I love that. But confidence has to be earned. You cannot give confidence.
Yeah.
It's like confidence comes from having these little victories that through blood, sweat, tears for effort. Absolutely. Right? So it's like, but bring the obstacle down to where you can get over it and then tackle something just slightly harder.
Yeah.
Right? Because now hey, well, for example, I did every now and then I would do like a 24-hour fast. And then one day I decided, I wonder how I can go a little further. So I did a 5-day fast. Well, now I know I'm good for 5 days, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's like you could write that on paper or you could read that in a book, but it's like that's theory.
Yeah.
What's reality is once you do it. And then once you do it, that's no longer theory, it's reality.
Yeah.
It's like now okay, I can do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So that gives you a certain level of confidence.
Yeah.
That can be anything. Yeah. Right? It's like I did that, I can do it again. Right? And now if I can do that, then what else can I do?
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, but Rome wasn't built in a day.
That's right.
So
I love that advice.
okay.
But to go back to it, this is a daily challenge for the next week after our listeners listen to this.
Okay.
So it needs to be something that's like easily digestible and tangible.
Okay, here's something that maybe is not physical, but maybe like a little different. So I you probably have heard. That leaders are readers. Okay, and so like as a dad, you're the leader of your family, right? Yeah. So again, when you're reading, what are you doing? You're programming, right? Like you have an operating system. Your brain has an operating system, and it's like it could be, or it may be MS-DOS, or or something more primitive, But it's like we have an operating system that constantly needs upgraded, and so like, and the way we do that is by putting good things in our head. Okay, it's like, and here's another thing: you're not going to live forever. Yeah, right. It's like we have a limited amount of time. Right. So it's like there's an unlimited amount of content out there. Absolutely. Right. I mean, how many like gazillion hours of YouTube that are there now, or podcasts, or books, right? And so it's like I finished. So okay, there's more in like the Library of Congress than you can possibly understand, comprehend. Sure. So like you have to be a little bit discerning. Like it's like what you said, Mom was talking about. That like you got all this stuff. Right. Like what do you need somebody to curate it down. And that's what we're doing here on this. Maybe so. But here would be my encouragement. Okay, it's like this challenge. A challenge to a daily challenge would be, okay, whether you are a reader or not. Okay, reading is a habit. Yeah. Okay, and it's like a habit. You can fall into a habit. You can maintain a habit. Yeah. You can fall out of a habit. Okay. I would encourage like this reading habit. Okay. And if you don't currently have a reading habit, start small. Right. Okay. And what that means is like, okay, probably get up 15 minutes earlier. Yeah. And read for 5 minutes or read for 10 minutes or, I like that you did it based on time and not like read 10 pages. No, well, I've heard that one a lot. Like, have you? Pages. Okay. But it's like I get into a book, I'm like, man, these are tough pages. This is going to take me half an hour. I mean, you might try either method. One method might work better for one person, another person. Exactly. Right? It's like, try and fail fast.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like, I would encourage to read. I mean, maybe it's like, come back to Proverbs. Okay. Proverbs, that would be an awesome place to start.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, okay. So like
Proverbs every day for the next 7 days.
yes. Yeah. Read one Proverbs a day.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just make it even simpler. If tomorrow, what is today's today? I mean, it doesn't really matter. But let's say today, let's say tomorrow is the 10th of the month. Well, just jump right in and read the Proverbs 10. Okay. And then the next day, Proverbs 11.
That's easy.
So forth. Just do that. Right. And if you do that consistently, here's another thing. Okay. You talked about measuring things, right?
Yeah.
Just get out on your phone or like a yellow Post-it note. It doesn't take much, but have a simple, reliable system where you like literally all you have to do is make a check mark.
Yeah.
Then okay, I did that thing. It's like, and if you get in bed, put this yellow stick note like on your nightstand. If you look over there and it's not checked, you're not done. Okay, so like, it's like, okay, like a few years ago I started doing push-ups, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, and I had a method where I kept track of how many push-ups I was doing, and usually I did them right before I went to bed because I don't like doing push-ups, and I would like procrastinate. But let me tell you, the hardest push-ups in the world are the ones that you have to do after you get in bed and realize, hey, I didn't do my push-ups. So that hurts. Yeah. Okay, but like your little yellow Post-it note that has Proverbs, whatever, 10 through 17, have a simple, reliable system that, something easy. And like when you get through a whole week, that's a victory. Yeah. Okay? It's like, that's a victory. Maybe find a way to like reinforce that.
Yeah.
So that's a habit. I mean, there's a process to habits actually. So it's like, you need to have something that triggers the habit, and then you do the activity and then you need to maybe reward yourself for like, and then after you do this sort of thing there's no like exact science on how long it takes to establish a habit. Maybe it's 21 days, maybe it's a month, who knows? Maybe it's 2 months. It doesn't really matter, right? But if you consistently do stuff long enough, eventually
it's a habit.
You quit thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
I like it.
I no longer hate push-ups.
Just right, yeah.
I just really dislike them.
Switch to burpees. That's awesome. I love that. So for the next week, pick up in Proverbs and read a chapter. Or
one chapter a day.
One chapter a day.
Yeah, maybe do it first thing in the morning,
and then start on the chapter that corresponds to the day you're on,
or like
hold it for the next 7 days,
or the last thing you do before you go to bed, because it's like you're putting good stuff in. You can think about it all night long.
Turns into diamonds overnight.
It's like magic happens when you're sleeping.
Exactly. All right. So in closing,
okay,
how can we serve you?
Oh, the best way is, I'm a big believer in prayer, right? And it's like it's one of these mysterious things, right? And it's like anyone that first and foremost, if they just would pray for me or for your other men friends, right? Just to be the best version of themselves.
You get to be selfish here, so asking for prayer,
right?
Perfect. So it's you. We can definitely do that.
We need that.
Absolutely.
Like we as men, we need that.
Yeah.
Right. It's like and like to have the companionship or friendship, deep friendships with other men.
Yeah.
Right. It's important. You can get busy with your family. You get busy at work, or like or being maybe a business owner.
Right.
It's hard to like set time aside, but that's valuable time.
Yeah.
So if you're lucky enough, persistent, you have to be. Maybe you have to be persistent in like finding a friend.
Totally.
Right. And like they say, to have a friend, you have to be a friend.
Yeah.
Right. And that means like, holding each other accountable, but like not being overly judgmental, loving each other. Right. So
in order so we can serve you by just keeping you in our prayers, we'll definitely do that.
Absolutely.
Is there anything specific or just generally speaking?
Just, I think my prayer is always to like, just, don't quit today. It's like you're chasing the horizon of like, whatever comes at you, the prayer would be like the ability to get through whatever's coming at you, because you don't know what's coming at you. Right. And if you're going through a hard time, or like they say, if you're going through hell, just keep going. Right. Don't stop.
Yeah.
Just keep moving, keep making progress. And like, we all need encouragement, and we need to encourage other people. And it's like, I'll maybe closing with this is like, after the passing of my mother and your grandmother, when I would be out walking, I mean, like if it was like midday or something, I might see a neighbor up and say, "Hey, Clint, sorry about your mom." And I'm kind of thinking, well, how do you know about my mom? But it's like, but as they expressed that, they gave me the opportunity to like share, and and it's amazing how people would open up, and you realize a lot of people, almost everyone you talk to is going through something. Yeah, and if they personally are not going through something, then someone in their family is, or they have a close friend that is. Right. It's like you'd be surprised how many people are like they're hurting. Yeah. Right. It's like, and you never know like what someone else is going through. So like be forgiving and hold grace, give people room to breathe. Yeah. And like, and whether that person is someone you work with or someone you work for, or like someone in your family or a neighbor, it's like try to be, understanding and forgiving, show some grace and get through it together, So
to speak to the power of prayer, I do every morning meet with a bunch of crazy dudes in front of the library. It's F3. It's all over the country. If you guys aren't already doing it, highly recommend you check out. Find just F3. I think it's f3nation.org or something like that. Show you a map. I'm sure there's one close to you. But give it a try. Bunch of good dudes just meeting up, working out, and at the end of every workout, we do something called COT, and we talk about just like announcements, stuff's going on, and then we get prayer requests. And Chastity, my wife, and I moved here to Davidson, North Carolina in March, and I immediately started with this group. And once I found out Chastity was pregnant, like just asked for their prayers often, weekly, for sure. Maybe not every single day. And those guys would ask me all the time, like, "Hey, how's it going? Been praying." Like, like, "Hey, things are progressing good. Thanks for your prayers. Appreciate it." And just constantly asking and getting support and feedback and prayer. And then a lot of the podcasts or a lot of the episodes you're going to hear are going to come from guys out of that group. But when the time came for those babies to be delivered, after the facts, both of them delivered, both very healthy, and it was just such a blessing. The nurse came and said, "Twins never deliver that smoothly." So, and then that checks out, because most people that I know that have twins like had to have C-sections or complications, or one was they had to spend time in the NICU, and just so blessed. Both of our children were born. It went on very smoothly. Chastity's recovery has been remarkably fast. I think we were home for 2 days and she walked 1.5 miles. It's just unbelievable. So power of prayer, like God answers. So we'll definitely be absolutely our prayers. Absolutely. And so literally the final thing here is, how can we connect with you, social or other?
I'm kind of non-social.
Antisocial. He doesn't want to connect with you.
No, I mean, about the most social thing I do is I'm on Strava, and that's
maybe I have a handle on Strava. How does that work? I boycotted Strava.
I think you can do an athlete search, and I'm definitely not an athlete.
Okay.
But I mean, it's Clint Rhoads, R-H-O-A-D-S.
Yeah, search for Clint Rhoads, CLINTRHOADS.
I am active
on Strava.
Active on Strava.
See if you can challenge him and beat him.
I have just a few people I follow. A few people follow me. But I think that I love the physical activity. Yeah. But it's not, like I said, it's not about the bike. It's really more of it's the endurance mindset. For sure. And I think that that's something that I find compelling. Yeah. And I have a high degree of respect for people that have endured things, hard things. And it's not necessarily in sports, right? It could be a broken relationship.
Yeah.
It could be some sort of hardship or a medical issue, where things didn't go well. It's like to overcome is not always easy, but to quit tomorrow, basically don't give up, keep going.
Yeah.
It just and recognize that life's not easy, and it's like and everyone's going through something, and if they're not now, they will be, or they have been, so
that's awesome.
We have to learn. We can learn from our own
tomorrow.
We can learn from our own circumstances, and we can learn from others too.
Quitting is the best thing to procrastinate on, right?
What?
Quitting is the best thing to procrastinate.
Some things you need to quit.
Yeah,
but
generally speaking.
But persistence is good.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay.
I've learned a lot, and hopefully the listeners have too. And
well, I'm not accustomed to talking about this sort of thing.
Thanks for
and it's
sharing.
It doesn't necessarily come out easy.
Yeah.
And so
guys, if you stuck around this long, appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one.
I enjoyed it.
So another question. So going back to cycling for me, I did fairly well at it. It was something that I enjoyed. Why do you think? What is your perception of why that was something that I latched onto?
It's interesting how that all came about, because you and I would ride bikes together, and you were as a kid, right, a little boy, and we would go out and ride, and how we just happened. It was just like this is one of those things of serendipity, right, where we just happened to cross paths with somebody that we were friendly towards. We were out mountain biking, and we were friendly towards, and like this guy we were talking to just responded back. Next thing you know, we're over at his house, and we're looking at bicycle components, online.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're looking at frames, and we're looking at, he basically ends up like, putting a bike together for you.
Yeah.
Right. And he just happened to be like, kind of like almost like pro level athlete.
Yeah.
And kind of amazing how all that kind of came about just through serendipity.
Yeah.
And then just watching you develop. First of all, you had an interest in it.
Yeah.
Right? You had an interest in it, and then you gear it up. Right? Cycling, you definitely can
get it. Oh,
gear up.
Gear heavy.
You should get geared, and you did that.
Yeah. To a big level.
And then you to the point where you were cannibalizing my bicycle to fix parts on your bicycle, and I end up without a bicycle.
Naturally.
But it's like at that point, you had like left me in the dust.
I don't remember that, but the cannibalization.
Yeah, and I was glad to see that basically, you went beyond me.
Yeah.
Right. But then what I saw like on the bike was that you had this interest. It turned into a love affair.
Yeah.
Everything about it. It's like it was the gear. It was the you're like, again, you're a kinesthetic learner.
Yeah.
It's like everything's hands on.
Yeah.
And so it's like your brain and your body are connected.
Right.
Right. And so like, as you progressed, I would ride it, it's amazing some of the things we did with a car and like, you and the bike and you, but it's like, and being, I would go out and photograph you like as you're riding it, and stuff. It's like watching you, Wes, on the bike was like, it was like watching someone in ballet. Okay. So like
beautiful form.
Well, you were dancing on the pedals.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like it was ballet on the bike.
Oh.
It was to me, and no one else. Of course, I'm biased. This is my son.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like this is like artistic.
Yeah.
It was artistic.
Yeah.
And it's like, consistent progress, and you're getting better and better and better, and then you get to a point where you're elite, right? And it's like you're kind of like fine tuning those skills. And it's like, okay, I also recognize, okay, here, this is like one little aspect of my child's life, my son's life, right? And it's like this is going to translate into other things later on, right? When the time comes, for that. So it's a great building block, right? And it's like. And it's also something that you can do for your lifetime if you want to.
Yeah.
Right. But like just to watch the progress, very tangible progress as time, and then to also see, I mean, it kind of like intertwines all these different parts of your life, because like when cycling it's a group activity.
Yeah.
It's kind of like somewhat there's a solo component to it,
Right.
but there's also like this group dynamic.
Yeah.
And then it's very like tactical. So it's almost like you're playing like chess.
Yeah.
Right. And like some of these things are nuances that people don't realize about cycling, but it's like, so it's very like it's very strategic, very mental, and
especially road cycling. Mountain is a little strategic too, but
yes,
I mean it's more of a technical skill.
But all these different like nuanced skill sets, right? It's like, and you're trying to build each in it and tie it all together, right? And it's kind of like magic, And then you see like the relationships that you form, and then the alliances that you make, like and then like the competitive aspect of it, or the friendships that develop out of it, and it's just the camaraderie,
right?
And it's like it's like you're building confidence, that was earned, right? It wasn't given to you; it was earned. It was earned basically pedal stroke by pedal stroke, And then like and there, I mean, there were crashes. And there were adversities.
Oh, for sure.
And broken
bikes,
broken parts, broken bones. It's like, you go down hard.
Oh yeah,
you go down hard, and it's like you kind of figure out, it's like, what am I made out of?
Yeah,
right. And it's like there's a lot of self-discovery there too, right? And so like some of those things, like even as a young person and adolescent, teen, college age, beyond, right. These are all things like, you're getting stronger, faster, better. You're Clint 2.0. Okay, you've gone beyond me, and I take like enormous pride in that. And it's like, and like your skill sets are different than mine. So it's like, I'm not like I'm not living my life through you, but I'm proud of you, for like those things. Yeah. So like cycling was a great thing. So like if you can find something for your child that it doesn't have to be physical. It can be something else, music.
Yeah. So you think it's because of like the variety of challenge there and just how multifaceted cycling is why I took such an interest to it.
Yeah. And I think we kind of latched on to something that it fits you. Okay. It's like you were like made for that. Okay. It's like, it's not necessarily, I mean, these were like talents that you had. God gave you these talents, and then you through your hard work, effort, skill, time, blood, sweat, and tears, all that stuff, right? Perseverance. You developed those skills. From the talent, you created skills out of that, and then out of that came all kinds of things. Travel, relationships. Other.
I would have never met Chastity. My wife had not been a cyclist, because the person that made the introduction to the person that made that introduction was a cyclist.
So everything, everything matters.
Butterfly effect. Yeah.
Everything matters.
So let's talk about the kind of when I hung it up. So you were talking about staying the course, maybe a little, staying persistent too long,
right?
So I had some bad luck in school or college, at least Cray, with injuries, broken leg, herniated lower lumbar discs, sciatica, that kind of thing. And then after that, just didn't pick it back up. And then that's also when the whole Lance Armstrong debacle came out, and then all the money that used to be in cycling kind of left.
And I mean, we haven't mentioned this, but within our family, we had kind of a breakup in our family.
Yeah.
Your mom and I.
Yeah.
It's like, that was devastating.
For sure.
25 years. And it's like all these things have impact.
Right.
And
so when I look back on it, there's a part of me that knows that I could have taken cycling further.
Right.
But I don't really have any regrets not going back to it, because I look at my peers that did stick with it, and they on social media and stuff, it looks like they have some fun, but like they're not thriving as professional cyclists. They're making a lot of sacrifices to do that. And while it is something you can recreationally do your whole life, you only have, you'll peak in your 30s,
right,
on the bike. And after that, that's it. So I'm glad that I didn't keep going down that path. But I think I didn't necessarily put as much value on the lessons that cycling taught as what I'm hearing you say that I got out of it.
I think
and that's encouraging to hear, because sometimes I do look back at those times with regret that I could have been utilizing that time to build other skill sets that may have served me better. But I can certainly tell you the long nights and taking care of the kids or whatever. It's, I know how to grind it out.
I mean, the song, the country song, I'm not a country music fan, but the song that talks about the house that built me, right? Mm-hmm. It's like cycling was kind of the house. That's one of the things that built you.
Yeah.
Right. It's like those are some of these things, aspects, or the character traits that you developed while cycling.
Right.
They transcend cycling. Mm-hmm. So it's like those character traits are now something that no one can take away from you. You've earned them. Right. And but yet you can apply those traits to other things.
Yeah.
Right. So even maybe your friends that persisted a little too long.
And it's not necessarily they persisted. They may be living the most, have the most satisfaction out of life. But from the appearance's sake, if I put myself in their shoes, I would not be satisfied with where they are.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But again,
for them, it may be right.
Their life's not over.
It's like, right. But I wouldn't want to be in their shoes instead of where I am today.
Yeah. So right. I get that.
Yeah. So, but I think the camaraderie bit of it played a much more significant impact than I gave it credit at the time. Mm-hmm. Because even when I changed teams and went to school, the camaraderie wasn't the same. Like, we had camaraderie on the team, but it wasn't the same as what I had with my home group of guys that I would ride with, as well as my team that I was on when I was in West Virginia racing as a junior cyclist. I had a really strong connection with those guys. I just didn't ever get that with my collegiate team.
Yeah.
And that for me was kind of the nail in the coffin.
Right.
I didn't enjoy riding with the people that I was surrounded by.
It's a multifaceted thing for sure.
But yeah,
that's probably true of a lot of athletes. They're just, they could be a phenomenal athlete, and they're just maybe not on the right team.
Right.
They're not surrounded by the right people. They don't have the right coach. They don't have someone that's going to help them be the best version of themselves.
And so, circling back to something you said earlier about getting on, switching careers or switching teams, so to speak. It's hard you kind of hit a ceiling, and then the person that you're working underneath perceives you as the, friendly new guy, and it's hard for you to jump out of that perception for that person. And so it's often easier to take that experience that you gain here, because now that experience that you have to somebody else makes you more of an expert than the new guy.
Right.
And so instead of being able to command, a humble salary, you can go and ask for more responsibility and salary and be compensated for your expertise and time. So I think that's a good lesson to take out of this as well.
Yeah, we can all find ourselves pigeonholed by someone else.
Yeah.
Right? Could be unfavorably or maybe unjustifiably, right? And someone could have a better perception of someone than they deserve.
Totally.
Or worse than they deserve. But yeah, sometimes you can make a jump laterally, some other, career wise, and kind of leave the whatever's holding you back. You can sever those ties and be set free.
Exactly. Yeah. Inspired Fathers. My name is Wesley Rhoads, and you've been listening to the Inspired Father podcast. I hope you found inspiration from this episode, and also hope that you'll subscribe and join us next time on the Inspired Father podcast.